Chapter 16:12. Very quickly, Gong Shaoqing and the rest understood. There was only one reason Mo Yunjue did this. For Hong Zhuang. From the beginning to the end, Mo Yunjue spent 2 years, wasted 2 years, and everything he did was for Hong Zhuang. At this moment they finally understood why Mo Yunjue suddenly left. It was impossible for him to join Tiangang sect. Presumably, Mo Yunjue should have told Hong Zhuang this before he left yesterday. Thinking of this, everyone sighed in their hearts. Just from everything Mo Yunjue did, they could tell that Mo Yunjue truly liked Hong Zhuang. Unfortunately, Hong Zhuang already had Di Beichen, so there was no more chance. Regarding this, everyone could only feel that it was a pity. As for Mo Yunjue leaving so cleanly, they felt even more admiration. It seemed as long as Di Beichen wasn't by Hong Zhuang's side, Mo Yunjue would appear. He was like a flower protector, and when Di Beichen came he would leave. But it was this kind of sacrifice and no request that made them even more amazed and impressed. How many people in this world could do this? Dong Fengyu's expression was very complicated. He knew that he couldn't do what Mo Yunjue did. Putting aside his identity, background, and status, everything he did couldn't be compared to Mo Yunjue or Di Beichen. With Mo Yunjue's noble status, he was willing to stay by Hong Zhuang's side as an ordinary cultivator. From the beginning to the end, he didn't ask for anything. This kind of sacrifice, who could do it? Master, Mo Yunjue left just like that. Xiao Hei's eyes flashed with a complicated light. It also didn't know what Mo Yunjue said to its master last night. But seeing Mo Yunjue leave just like that, it felt a little stifled in its heart. Don't think about it. It's best that he left. Di Beichen is the right man for master. Xiaobai said. It admired Mo Yunjue. Admired his determination. He knew what was best for master. To be honest, it liked Mo Yunjue. But Di Beichen's feelings for master weren't littles at all. The most important thing was master's feelings. Baisher was silent and did not speak. He was very clear that his master liked Di Beichen. No matter how much Mo Yunjue did, no matter how touching it was, their master's heart would not change. It would only make them sigh. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was complicated, but it quickly returned to normal. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. His deep and charming eyes stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, filled with deep love and tenderness. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a bright and beautiful smile. Perhaps she was selfish. Her heart only had room for one person. Let's go. Di Beichen turned to look at the cultivators behind him and said. Hearing this, everyone nodded. They couldn't wait to leave the small world. In the next moment, everyone rushed out and left the small world. Under Di Beichen's lead, everyone appeared in the Tiangang sect's territory through the transportation array. Because every assessment competition was organized by the 10 great sects, there was a transportation array at the exit of the assessment competition that led to each sect. Chapter 16:13. Listening to Di Beichen's words, everyone nodded and couldn't help but look at Tiangang sect behind them. Just looking at the majestic Tiangang sect, everyone's heart couldn't help but be excited. After so many years of struggle and hard work, now they were finally going to become a member of Tiangang sect. Thinking of this, they felt that their bodies were filled with inexhaustible energy. They just wanted to roar out loud to vent their inner ecstasy. Di Beichen had a faint smile on his face, and then handed the map to everyone. The route to Tiangang sect is drawn on the map, but this route can only be seen by you. Do you understand? Understood. Everyone responded in unison. The news of your selection will soon be sent back to your respective dynasties, and the rewards of Tiangang sect will also be sent over. Presumably, before you arrive, these things have already arrived in advance. After working hard for 2 years, you can now relax for a while. If there are no doubts, you can leave now. With Di Beichen's voice falling, everyone's faces showed a happy smile. Thank you, young sect master. Everyone respectfully bowed to Di Beichen. Young sect master, goodbye. Speaking of which, their luck was extremely good. Other sects had elders come to greet the new disciples, but Tiangang sect's young sect master came in person, which was a very rare thing. All of this was because of Bailey Hongzhuang. In any case, as long as they went back and said that they had seen the young sect master of Tiangang sect, this was a supreme glory. Soon, the cultivators left one after another. leaving only Bailey Hongzhuang's group in the same place. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and smiled at Xia Jiqing and the others. Everyone has to go back to their respective dynasties to have a look. Now everyone is a hero. Xia Jiqing and others had smiles on their faces. As Hongzhuang said, they were really famous when they went back. The assessment competition was over, and their families must be waiting for their news. This time when they went back, it was really a glorious return. Boss, what about you? Xia Jiqing couldn't help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I have no need to go back. Now that she had nothing to do with Fengbo country, there was no need to go back. In the past 2 years, she had been worried about her parents. She didn't know how her parents were doing now. She just wanted to ask Di Beichen about the specific situation later. Now that she had returned from the assessment competition, her strength had improved a lot, but there was still a big gap to compete with the Lan family and Yu family. Gong Xiaoqing and others looked at each other. They were also very clear about Hongzhuang's situation in Fengbo country. Since they had already broken their relationship, there was no need to go back. Let's go back to the college together. No matter what, we are still students of the Azure Water School. Now that we are about to become sect disciples, we should go back and take a look. Dong Fengyu suggested. The reason why they were able to gather together and walk together until now was because of the Kanglin school. The sect is hearing this. Bailey Hongzhuang and others' eyes lit up. The principal and mentors of Kanglin College had always been very good to them. During the college tournament, the vice principal directly withdrew from the 3 major colleges for them. Chapter 16:14. When they left, the situation of the Kanglin College was not good. After all, the Kanglin College had always been known as the 3 major colleges with the other 2 colleges, and its reputation was very strong. But after the relationship with the other 2 colleges was severed, the state of alliance naturally did not exist. With the despicable actions of Lingying College and Beihai College, they would definitely slander the Kanglin College. As a member of the Kanglin College, they naturally did not want such a thing to happen. Now that they had passed the assessment and become disciples of the Tiangang sect, they believed that they could also contribute to the college. Dongfeng is right, why don't we go back to the college together? Xia Jiqing smiled. At the beginning, the principal had asked them to go back to their respective dynasties to try to get the opportunity to participate in the assessment. Since they followed Heimu to the Tiangang sect, they had not sent back any news. Now that all this was over, they should go back and explain. Looking at everyone's happy appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but turn to look at Di Beichen and ask Di Beichen for his opinion. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang tenderly and said, "If you want to go, then go back and see." "What about you?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked. After 2 years of separation, they finally met again today, but now they were going to be separated again? Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's lovely expression, Di Beichen chuckled and said, "Where you go, I will naturally go." He had missed Hongzhuang for so long. How could he bear the taste of separation again? In the past 2 years, he had always wished that he could stay by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. After tasting the pain of missing, he regretted that he should have participated in the assessment with Hongzhuang. At the beginning, he also had such an idea, but he still had a lot of things to do in the outside world. He needed to check the news. Only in this way could Hongzhuang be more at ease when she returned. Now he just wanted to stay by Hongzhuang's side, and was not willing to be separated for a second. With Di Beichen's voice falling, a playful smile appeared on the faces of Xia Jiqing and the others. "Oh," everyone deliberately dragged out their words and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen ambiguously. Noticing everyone's gaze, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed a little, revealing a hint of shyness and helplessness. However, Di Beichen put his arm around Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and looked at the crowd calmly. "Hongzhuang is my legal wife. We are open and above board." Seeing this, everyone felt helpless. It had to be said that Di Beichen, as the young sect master of Tiangang sect, had a thick skin. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her head and looked at Di Beichen. The smile in her eyes deepened. After 2 years, Di Beichen's character hadn't changed at all. "Since it's decided, let's set off now," Di Beichen said. "All right. Let's go. Let's go back." Everyone looked relaxed. In the past 2 years, they had never been so relaxed. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and walked all the way forward. It seemed that he was unwilling to let go. Bailey Hongzhuang could feel Di Beichen's emotions. She also held Di Beichen's hand. Chapter 16:15. They had watched Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walk all the way to the present. 2 years had passed, but the feelings between Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had not changed at all. It could be said that their love was stronger than gold. They had also seen many people who could not endure the time. They had a change of heart after not seeing each other for a while. Such things were common, and all kinds of reasons could lead to their separation. Because they watched Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen being so firm together, they were full of blessings and envy. He Mu also walked together with Xia Jiqing and the others. With the young master and young madam together, he did not need to worry at all. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang also knew what everyone was thinking, but they did not refuse. They had not seen each other for 2 years, and they did have a lot to talk about. After everyone disappeared from sight, Di Beichen stared at Bailey Hongzhuang and asked with a smile, "I haven't seen you for 2 years, did you miss me?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes, only to see Di Beichen's handsome, angular face rippling with a trace of a smile demonic and bewitching. Looking at Di Beichen like this, Bailey Hongzhuang deliberately said, "I don't miss you." Di Beichen's eyes changed a bit. "You really don't miss me?" Bailey Hongzhuang looked to the other side, nodded and said, "Naturally." The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly felt a force hit her. She stepped forward uncontrollably and fell directly into Di Beichen's arms. "You don't miss me, but I miss you." Di Beichen's gentle and affectionate voice sounded in Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. His warm breath made Bailey Hongzhuang's ears itch. Those affectionate words hit her heart directly, making her heart soften in an instant. "The days when you're not by my side feel like years." Di Beichen revealed his inner thoughts. In the past 2 years he had been thinking about Hongzhuang all the time. Now that Hongzhuang had returned, he felt an unprecedented joy in his heart. At the same time, his feelings were complicated. He didn't know what Hongzhuang had experienced in the past 2 years, and Mo Yunjua's sudden appearance had also made him wary. After all, Mo Yunjua was also an outstanding man. In the Shangxian continent, he and the young master of the Heavenly Slaughter Pavilion had a resounding reputation. Sometimes they were even called the two heroes. However, many people did not know who the young master of the Heavenly Slaughter Pavilion was, so his reputation was even more resounding. The Heavenly Slaughter Tower's young master had also done some praiseworthy things, but one was in the light while the other was in the dark. If Mo Yunjua was not the Heavenly Slaughter Pavilion's young master, but the young master of some other force, he would be someone who received a lot of attention. However, he wasn't going to ask Hongzhuang this question. He only wanted to tell Hongzhuang how much he had missed her in the past 2 years. Facing such a serious and affectionate Di Beichen, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart melted. Her hands gradually wrapped around Di Beichen's back. The familiar fragrance from Di Beichen's body made her relax. "In the past 2 years my mind has been tense most of the time. Only when I miss you do I feel the most relaxed. I don't know what has changed in 2 years, but I'm glad that you haven't changed." Chapter 16:16. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen's arms around Bailey Hongzhuang gradually tightened, tightly hugging Bailey Hongzhuang, as if he wanted to melt her into his bones and blood. Feeling the change in Di Beichen's strength, Bailey Hongzhuang also tightly hugged Di Beichen. Only in this way could they deeply feel each other's tension and longing. "I should be glad that you walked into my life. Wife, you are a gift from the heavens." Di Beichen reached out and rubbed Bailey Hongzhuang's soft silky hair. Since Hongzhuang walked into his heart, he only had her in his heart. There are thousands of weak water, but only one ladle can be taken. His wife was so different thousands of women couldn't compare to her. To him, Hongzhuang was the most special existence in the world. Once he felt that being forced to go to Fengbo country was the most frustrating time in his life. At that time he was so frustrated. He didn't want to admit that he would never be able to stand up again. He kept looking for a way to cure him, but the results disappointed him again and again. In the face of Xianyuan Huan, Xianyuan Jing and the others' ridicule and sarcasm, he didn't even have the thought of resisting. His will was once depressed, but in the end, he even gradually accepted reality. Even if he really couldn't stand up again, he didn't allow himself to be depressed. And Hong Zhuang was the miracle of his life. When he first saw Hong Zhuang, he only felt that this woman was really interesting. He clearly saw Hong Zhuang throw Xiao He and Xiao Bai out in order to save him. To tell the truth, he stayed in Fengbo country for a long time. Xin Yuan Huan and the others teased him countless times, but no one said a word for him. And Bailey Hong Zhuang was the first. The sun shone on her body, and her delicate little face was filled with a proud and sly light. It was because of this that he wanted to tease Hong Zhuang. Hong Zhuang's reaction was just as he had expected. It was really interesting. With his financial resources, it was impossible for him to go back on his word. However, he wanted to go back on his word to Hong Zhuang. After that, he had walked step by step. His heart had been perturbed. How could a cripple like him be together with Hong Zhuang? However, he never thought that Hong Zhuang could help him stand up. From the moment they met until now, he felt that everything was arranged by the heavens. Bailey Hong Zhuang's lips curved into a happy smile. It's good to see you again. That's great. Thousands of words turned into this one sentence. It's so good to have you. Whenever she was in danger, she would worry about what would happen if something really happened to her and she couldn't make it out of the competition. When she thought that Di Beichen was still waiting for her outside the competition, her heart felt an indescribable pain. Therefore, she tried her best to persist. This was her biggest belief. When she was trying to break through the 99th step of the celestial stairway, the terrifying power crushed her body and mind, and Di Beichen was the driving force for her to support herself. Di Beichen listened to Bailey Hong Zhuang's words. His deep eyes became brighter, and the smile on his lips gradually rose. Hong Zhuang, I love you. Di Beichen's eyes showed a deep affection. He loved Hong Zhuang more than anyone else. Bailey Hong Zhuang hugged Di Beichen tightly. She missed this hug so much. Xia Jiqing and the others were walking in front. They were very happy, and the smile on their lips couldn't be controlled. Chapter 16-17. When I return to the Shangxian continent, although it is still a forest in front of me, there is a familiar feeling. Xia Jiqing's face was filled with a happy and comfortable smile. She was worried that she would never come back, but now that she saw everything in the Shangxian continent again, there was an indescribable excitement. Listening to Xia Jiqing's words, Dongfang Yu and the others couldn't help but nod. Their feelings were the same as Xia Jiqing's. In the past 2 years, they had always had their heads tied to their waists. If they weren't careful, they could lose their lives. Now that they could relax, the feeling was naturally very good. The biggest difference between here and the small world is that there won't be a large group of demon beasts here, so I feel a lot more at ease. Bai Junyu said with a smile. It was also a forest, but the number of demon beasts here was much smaller than in the small world. Walking in the small world, they would be attacked by demon beasts almost every once in a while. Their mental strength was always tense, guarding against any demon beast that might attack at any time. Under such a tense mental state, they naturally didn't feel good. In the Shangxian continent, as long as they didn't enter the demon beast mountain range, such a situation wouldn't happen. Now they had the mentality of going on a scenic tour. This kind of relaxation was really too comfortable. Compared to everyone's emotions and excitement, Gong Xiaoqing's thoughts were different. The spirit energy in the small world is much richer than here. Cultivating here, the speed of improving strength is a lot slower. Hearing Gong Xiaoqing's words, everyone couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Then they all laughed and said, Gong Xiaoqing's mind is really only filled with cultivation. If it was an ordinary person, they would feel extremely happy in such a situation. Only Gong Xiaoqing was different. Speaking of which, cultivation occupied most of Gong Xiaoqing's mind. Xiaoqing, we are already out of the small world. The major sects have given us 3 months of rest. You should relax. Dongfang Yu patted Gong Xiaoqing's shoulder. He was really helpless towards his brother. When he first met Gong Xiaoqing, he was like this. After all these years, there really hadn't been any changes. Dongfang is right. I think Miss Lu must still be waiting for you at the college. You should think about it. Bai Junyu said with a smile. Lu Qinyue's love for Gong Xiaoqing was in everyone's eyes. To be honest, with Miss Lu's conditions, to be able to firmly like Gong Xiaoqing was really true love. One must know that in the entire Zhonglan city, there were countless people pursuing Miss Lu. Xia Jiqing nodded slightly. Miss Lu is really infatuated with love. You can't let her down. As a woman, she also hoped that Lu Qingyue, who was so affectionate, would have a good ending. After all, by Junyu's Bice Ises loses Lu. S lose of the colleges lose S by's colleges use with lose. He's lose. After Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Zhixin heard the conversation between Xia Jiqing and others, they couldn't help but ask, who is Miss Lu? Chapter 16:18. Hearing this, Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Jixian immediately understood and immediately looked at Gong Xiaoqing with ridicule in their eyes. From the time they met Gong Xiaoqing until now, Gong Xiaoqing had always had a cold appearance, unapproachable. If they hadn't been in contact with Gong Xiaoqing for a long time and understood that he was a very good person, they wouldn't have known. If it was an ordinary person, just looking at Gong Xiaoqing's unapproachable appearance, they would have retreated. However, it had to be said that Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Yu were very charming men. In the days of the assessment, there were many women who admired them. Just by looking at their eyes it could be seen. Fortunately, female cultivators weren't as exaggerated as male cultivators. They were more shy and shy. Therefore, Dongfang Yu and the others never had conflicts because of such things, but Hong Zhuang was often harassed by such things. I didn't expect that there was always someone waiting for Xiaoqing outside. You have to cherish it, Yuan Zhixin said with a smile. Looking at Boss and Di Beichen's appearance, he also had an indescribable shock and envy in his heart. If one day he could find such a other half, it would be an extremely happy thing. 2 years had passed and they were not young anymore. If it was an ordinary family, they would have already married or had children. It was only because they were cultivators that they were a little late. However, seeing that cultivators of the same age already had someone they loved, they also felt envious. Yuan Xiaoman couldn't help but look at Bai Junyu. She only felt that it was time for her to express her feelings to Bai Junyu. After being together for so long, she was very clear about what kind of person Bai Junyu was. She was a very proactive woman. When she met someone she liked, she would bravely pursue them. If Bai Junyu didn't make a move, then she didn't mind confessing. After all, it wasn't a good thing to maintain this state. Back then, during the assessment competition, because there was danger everywhere, things like romance were naturally put aside. Now that they had successfully returned to the Shangxian continent, this kind of thing could be put on the journey. Gong Xiaoqing's expression was slightly complicated. Although everyone told him this, his feelings for Qingyue hadn't reached that point. He had always treated Qingyue as his younger sister. It was precisely because of this that they had never gotten close to each other despite being together for such a long time. He didn't want to hurt Qingyue. If his feelings for Qingyue weren't love, then even if he got together with Qingyue, it would only hurt Qingyue more. Obviously, no one knew what he was thinking, and he didn't want to say more. Most of the time, no matter how outstanding a woman was, no matter how good she was to you, if you didn't have feelings for her, she would still be a younger sister. He didn't want to disappoint Qingyue. At the very least, he had to be sure of his own feelings so that he could be responsible for Qingyue. Everyone saw that Gong Xiaoqing had sunk into silence, so they didn't say much on this issue. I really didn't expect that Mo Yunjue would actually be the young master of the Heaven Slaughter Pavilion. This is too shocking. Yuan Zhixin sighed. In the past, I have always admired the Heaven Slaughter Tower. They wander in the darkness and their information network is extremely terrifying. There is almost no one that the Heaven Slaughter Tower cannot kill. Chapter 16:19. Yuan Zhixin had heard about the Shutian Tower before. Compared to the unattainable reputation of the major sects, they had heard more about the Shutian Tower. This was because the Shutian Tower accepted all kinds of tasks. No matter who you wanted to kill, as long as you could pay a sufficient price, they would help you complete it. No matter what you wanted to inquire about, as long as you could take out enough chips, they could help you inquire about it. It was precisely because of this that although the reputation of the Shutian Tower was not very good, and those who had contact with the Shutian Tower would not say it out loud, they had to admit that the information network and means of the Shutian Tower were indeed shocking. He could not believe that not only did he know the young master of the Tiangang sect, But he had also been teammates with the young master of the Shirtian Tower for such a long time. Thinking of this, he had a feeling of disbelief. Yeah, I always thought that Mo Yunjue was very mysterious, but I didn't expect his real identity to be even more mysterious. Xia Jiqing sighed. She had never expected this result. Mo Yunjue's identity was so powerful. Originally, she thought that although Mo Yunjue was very good, he could not be compared with Di Beichen. Now she knew that Mo Yunjue and Di Beichen were on the same level. It was just that one was in the light and the other was in the dark, so they were not clear enough. She really admired the boss. The boss was really not an ordinary woman. Whether it was Di Beichen or Mo Yunjue, they were all legendary figures, but they both had deep feelings for the boss. If it were any other woman, as long as one of them liked her, it would be enough to make her happy. In fact, this kind of legendary figure could only be imagined in their dreams. In reality, it was impossible for them to meet him. However, all the way to the present, the boss was a miracle maker. Everything that was impossible had happened to Big Boss. Mo Yunjue has left this time. I'm afraid I don't know when we'll meet again. Bai Junyu sighed faintly. Mo Yunjue was also a good friend in their hearts. However, this time, Mo Yunjue had left so suddenly and so decisively. Even though they already knew the reason, they still felt disappointed. Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Na looked at each other. Their feelings were very complicated. From the time they met Mo Yunjue in the Qing dynasty until now, all the developments made them understand the reason. They believed that Hong Zhuang didn't know about this at all. Just like them, Hong Zhuang only found out about this after the assessment. Thinking about it, Hong Zhuang would be even more shocked. Let's not discuss this matter anymore, Gong Xiaoqing said in a low voice. The relationship between Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen was good. They didn't want to hear something that they shouldn't hear to affect their relationship. He Mu, who was hidden in the darkness, had already heard everyone's words clearly. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Young Madame's charm was truly boundless. The pressure on young master wasn't small either. Thinking about it, He Mu was relieved. Just by looking at young Madame's feelings for young master, he could see that she was wholeheartedly devoted to young master. There was no need to worry. After all, young Madame was a strange woman in the world. If not, young master would not be so infatuated with young Madame. Chapter 1620. Hearing Gong Xiaoqing's words, Xia Jiqing and the others also reacted. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were behind them. Although there was nothing between Hong Zhuang and Mo Yunjue, it was not good if Di Beichen heard it. They didn't want to affect the relationship between Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. They only hoped that they would always be together. You all go back to the college together. My brother and I have to go back to the snow country first, Yuan Xiaoman said slowly. Bai Junyu and the others were all students of the college. It was normal to go together, but they were not students of the college. Naturally, there was no need to go together. Do you want to go to the college with us to play? Xia Jiqing asked with a smile. Yuan Jixin waved his hand and said, You go, we won't go. Our family must be waiting for us to go back. Hearing this, Xia Jiqing and the others nodded, their faces showing a look of understanding. They had been out for so long, their family must be very worried. It was good to go back early. What's more, the snow country was much farther than them, and the time spent on the road was much longer than them. They were afraid that even if they went to the college and went back home, they would be about the same time as Yuan Jixin and the others. If Yuan Jixin went to the college with them, then they wouldn't have much time to stay at home. That's right, we should go back early to tell our family the good news, Bai Junyu said with a smile. Yuan Jixin's face was full of smiles. He had been out for 2 years, and he missed his family very much. Presumably, his family was also anxiously waiting for them to go back. He didn't feel much when he didn't go out before, but now that he had been out for so long, he felt how good it was to go home. He believed that his family would never have thought that he and Xiaoman would achieve such results. In the entire snow country, only he and Xiaoman survived. He believed that the royal family would definitely meet them. With all these things added up, he and Xiaoman would be very busy after going back. Yuan Xiaoman couldn't help but look at Bai Junyu. They wouldn't be able to see each other for 3 months, but in this situation, going home was naturally the most important. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen caught up with them. Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a smile, "What are you guys talking about so happily?" Xia Jiqing turned her head and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, and a sly light appeared in her eyes. "We were just talking about what you were whispering behind us." Hearing this, Dong Fengyu and the others couldn't help but laugh. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Xia Jiqing. Jiqing was becoming more and more naughty. In comparison, Di Beichen was much more indifferent. He had always been so open and aboveboard, but in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, he was just thick-skinned. Di Beichen only took Bailey Hongzhuang's comment as a compliment. After all, if he wasn't thick-skinned, how could he have directly abducted Bailey Hongzhuang? Looking at Di Beichen's unashamed appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang was completely helpless. She was completely helpless against Di Beichen. Seeing this, Xia Jiqing and the others laughed even more happily. For a long time, it had been others who couldn't do anything to Hongzhuang. It was rare to see Hongzhuang's helpless appearance. Speaking of which, Di Beichen was still the most powerful. Chapter 1621. When Bailey Hongzhuang and her party happily went to Kanglin College, Tiangang sect's great elder Han Hongyi stood on top of Tiangang sect, anxiously looking at them. The assessment competition was over, and Di Beichen personally went to recruit cultivators. Logically speaking, she should have come back by now. However, he waited for a long time and didn't wait for Xiling to come back. He couldn't help but feel anxious. Tiangang sect's cultivators looked at Han Hongyi's appearance and knew that Han Hongyi was waiting for Han Xiling to come back. In fact, they were very curious about whether Han Xiling's performance or Bailey Hongzhuang's was better in this assessment competition. This matter had always been the focus of everyone's attention. Although other cultivators would not come to Tiangang sect immediately, Han Xiling was a cultivator of Tiangang sect. As long as the assessment competition was over, she would definitely come back. At that time they would know the final result. At the beginning, the conflict between Han Xiling and Bailey Hongzhuang was very big. Everyone knew that they would compete in the assessment competition. Thinking about it, whoever's performance was better, whose voice would be louder, and the possibility of becoming the young lord's wife would be greater. After all, to be the young lord's wife required at least a certain amount of strength. If Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was not good, it was believed that everyone would oppose the young lord to be with her. No need to guess, it must be that Han Xiling's performance is better than Bailey Hongzhuang's. Han Xiling has been cultivating in the sect these years. Whether it is cultivation resources, experience or vision, it is far better than Bailey Hongzhuang from an ordinary dynasty. If Han Xiling doesn't win, it doesn't make sense at all. That's not necessarily true. Bailey Hongzhuang's performance in the assessment array is very outstanding. Who among us can have a better performance than her in the assessment array for the first time? So what? Regardless of whether Han Xiling did better than her in the first assessment, at least what Bailey Hongzhuang can do, Han Xiling can also do. As everyone knew, Han Xiling had many opportunities to enter the assessment array. Her conditions and the resources she enjoyed were superior to Bailey Hongzhuang's. This was an indisputable fact. After all, there was no such thing as absolute fairness in this world. I think highly of Bailey Hongzhuang. Her words and actions are domineering enough and she's open and aboveboard. I believe in young sect master's foresight. For a moment, the crowd of disciples had different opinions. However, most of the cultivators stood on Han Xiling's side. It wasn't that they didn't think highly of Bailey Hongzhuang, but the gap between Bailey Hongzhuang and Han Xiling was too big. Almost all of the cultivators looked down the mountain. Logically speaking, the time should have arrived, and the results should have been known by now. As time gradually passed, Han Hongyi's brows gradually furrowed. He didn't know why, but he had a bad premonition in his heart, which made him anxious and on tenterhooks. It was because of this that he didn't wait in the hall, but stood outside to wait. Even though he had a bad premonition, Han Hongyi's rationality told him that there shouldn't be any problems at all. The other elders were also curious about the final result of the assessment competition. Hence, they all came to Han Hongyi's side. They were also curious about the cultivators who had been recruited in this assessment competition. Chapter 1622. Every time during the assessment competition, the elders of the top 10 sects would be very aggressive in recruiting outstanding cultivators. The assessment competition was a very valuable competition held by the top 10 sections. Most of the cultivators who stood out in the assessment competition had good results. What they were most curious about was who would get the first place in this assessment competition. For the top 10 sects, whoever could get the first place in the assessment competition was a very honorable thing. It's already late, why haven't they come back yet? That's right. The cultivators from the previous batches have all returned. Could there be any problems? Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang has fallen, so young sect master is not willing to come back? Everyone guessed. With young sect master's feelings for Bailey Hongzhuang, if something really happened to Bailey Hongzhuang, then it was normal for young sect master not to come back. Han Hongyi, who was in a bad mood after hearing everyone's guess, his eyes gradually filled with a smile. If this was the case, then it was not unacceptable for young sect master to come back later. He believed that Xi Ling must have killed Bailey Hongzhuang. With Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, it was impossible to hide. Even if there was a problem in the middle, with the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang's group of cultivators, it was impossible to survive the assessment competition. At this moment, another figure appeared in everyone's sight. Looking at this figure, the disciples present all bowed respectfully. Greetings to Sect Master. The loud and orderly voice sounded in unison, containing respect for Si Tuyen. None of them thought that the Sect Master would come out personally at this time. Usually, it was very difficult for them to see the Sect Master. An existence like the Sect Master would not easily appear in front of everyone. It seemed that the Sect Master was also very concerned about the results of this assessment competition. After Han Hongyi and the others saw Si Tuyen coming, they also bowed and said, "Sect Master." Si Tuyen waved his hand slightly, motioning everyone not to care. After that, he stood beside Han Hongyi and the others, and his eyes quietly fell down the mountain. However, there were no cultivators at the foot of the mountain. Now that even the sect leader has come in person, we can see how great his influence is. Do you think Sect Master supports young Sect Master or Han Xiling? Sect Master has always been very good to young Sect Master. I feel that Sect Master will definitely support young Sect Master. That's not necessarily true. This kind of thing is not decided by the young master alone. The young master's wife and the young master both represent Tiangang sect. Compared to Han Xiling, many cultivators were secretly disdainful of Bailey Hongzhuang's identity. It was just that if such a woman without any background became the wife of the young master of Tiangang sect, it was really too hard to accept. At least, Han Xiling had been famous since young, so it would be easier for everyone to accept her being together with young sect master. The reason why they could not accept Bailey Hongzhuang was perhaps because they were jealous that they were not as lucky as Bailey Hongzhuang. Sect master, young sect master has not returned until now. I wonder if there is a problem? Qin Ai's eyes were filled with worry, and she could not help but ask. Chapter 1623. There was a worry in Qin Ai's heart. He had never doubted the young sect master's ability, and recruiting cultivators was a piece of cake for the young sect master. However, the young sect master had not returned for a long time. He was worried that something had happened to Bailey Hongzhuang. No one knew what had happened in the assessment competition for 2 years and what Bailey Hongzhuang had experienced. When the young sect master brought Bailey Hongzhuang back to Tiangang sect, he knew that the young sect master had deep feelings for Bailey Hongzhuang. Although the young sect master had never mentioned this matter in the past 2 years, he could tell that the young sect master had always missed Bailey Hongzhuang. In the past, the young sect master did not smile much. It was only after Bailey Hongzhuang came that he noticed that the young sect master smiled much more when he was with Bailey Hongzhuang. After Bailey Hongzhuang participated in the assessment competition, he realized that the young sect master smiled even less, and it was rare to see him smile. He had watched the young sect master grow up, so he knew the young sect master very well. Just from the young sect master's performance, he could tell how much the young sect master liked Bailey Hongzhuang. He really did not wish for anything to happen to Bailey Hongzhuang. The young sect master had always been very sensible since he was young. He cultivated with all his might and was hardworking and outstanding. If there was a woman who could make the young sect master truly happy, he only hoped that the young sect master could be happy. He believed that the sect master had the same thoughts as him. The sect master had always been very satisfied with the young sect master, and he was very assured to hand the Tiangang sect over to the young sect master. Even if the young sect master's wife did not have enough power, he believed that the young sect master could support the entire Tiangang sect. She will be back soon. No expression could be seen on Si Tian's dignified face. No one knew that his hands had gradually tightened under his sleeves. Nothing must happen to Bailey Hongzhuang. Right now, he was almost certain that Bailey Hongzhuang was his granddaughter. He had always thought that he, Si Tian, was all alone and Di Beichen was his only family. However, he had never thought that not only did he have a daughter, he also had a granddaughter. Furthermore, his daughter and granddaughter had suffered so much over the years and he was completely unaware of it. Now, he only hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang could return safely. He wanted to take good care of Bailey Hongzhuang and rescue his daughter and son-in-law. In fact, his heart was also filled with worry. He already knew what Han Hongyi had done back then, but he didn't expect Han Hongyi to do such a thing with his age and reputation. In order to let his granddaughter, Han Xiling, get everything she wanted, he actually bribed other cultivators to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. If something really happened to Bailey Hongzhuang, he would never let Han Hongyi off. Han Hongyi, who was anxiously waiting, suddenly felt a strong pressure and killing intent, and his heart couldn't help but tremble. Looking carefully, he didn't know where this feeling came from, and a puzzled light appeared in his eyes. Perhaps it was his illusion. While everyone was waiting, a figure slowly swept up from the bottom of the mountain and appeared in everyone's line of sight. Seeing this figure, Si Tian couldn't help but frown. "Hey Ming." "Greetings, sect master." He Ming bowed respectfully. As the young sect master's secret guard, he usually only listened to the young sect master. Chapter 1624. Si Tian raised his right hand slightly, indicating that He Ming was excused. As Di Beichen's secret guard, He Ming had always been by Di Beichen's side. Although Di Beichen had not returned, He Ming must have returned to report something. Han Hongyi and the others' eyes also fell on He Ming, wanting to know what had happened. "Why hasn't the young sect master returned yet?" Si Tian asked aloud. Reporting to the sect master, the young sect master has already let the recruited new disciples go back to rest. They will report on time in 3 months. Miss Bailey wants to return to the Kanglin College, so the young sect master also went back with Miss Bailey. The young sect master asked me to report the situation. As He Ming's voice fell, Si Tian quietly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang returned safely, he could rest assured. It was also very good to have Di Beichen by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. In the past 2 years, he had also learned from Di Beichen what Bailey Hongzhuang had experienced over the years. He believed that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen would return after going to the Kanglin College, because other places were meaningless to Bailey Hongzhuang. Not only Si Tian, but Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing also breathed a sigh of relief after hearing that Bailey Hongzhuang was safe. In fact, they were all on the young sect master's side. When the disciples heard that Bailey Hongzhuang was still alive, and that the young sect master had accompanied Bailey Hongzhuang back to the Kanglin College, their expressions changed a little. The young sect master really likes Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to go back to Kanglin College, so young master did not hesitate to accompany Bailey Hongzhuang back. Young master has never been so good to Han Xiling. That's right. It seems like Han Xiling can't win against Bailey Hongzhuang. So what if the elders don't agree? Young sect master's heart is with Bailey Hongzhuang. Everyone sighed faintly as they really didn't know what was so good about Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to make young sect master be so dead set on her. For 2 whole years, young sect master's heart had never changed. How envious was that? However, after Han Hongyi heard the news that Bailey Hongzhuang was still alive, his face instantly became gloomy. He couldn't understand why Bailey Hongzhuang was still alive. The original plan was obviously flawless. It was impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang to survive. What went wrong in the middle? Then why hasn't Xiling come back yet? Han Hongyi couldn't help but ask. Even if Di Beichen accompanied Bailey Hongzhuang back to the Kanglin College, then Han Xiling didn't need to go anywhere at all. He should have come back directly at this moment. Why was there no trace of him? Everyone's gazes fell on He Ming. They were also very curious about this. He Ming's eyes changed a little, but the words he said made everyone present completely stunned. Miss Han didn't walk out of the assessment. As soon as these words came out, everyone present was stunned. Some disciples even sucked in a breath of cold air. They couldn't believe what they had heard. Situ Yan's eyes changed slightly. There was a trace of surprise in the depths of his eyes, but it was not obvious. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing were in disbelief. They even wondered if they had heard wrongly. How could such a situation happen? Chapter 1625. Han Hongyi stared at He Ming's face and said, "What did you say just now? Say it again?" Seeing this, He Ming continued, "Miss Han did not come back. This is impossible." Han Hongyi immediately refuted. This was simply impossible. With Shi Ling's strength, and Wu Yu Xian and the others had been taking care of Shi Ling, how could there be a problem? What exactly is going on? Si Tuyen asked aloud. Since Sect Master asked personally, He Ming's answer was more specific. After Sect Master recruited talents in the assessment competition, he did not see Miss Han's trace. Until all the cultivators in the assessment competition left, Miss Han still did not appear. Miss Han should have already perished. Although He Ming used the word should, everyone was already very clear that Han Xiling must have died. Otherwise, Han Xiling would not have not appeared until the end of the assessment competition. Did Wu Yu Xian and the others come back? Han Hongyi asked immediately. No. Hearing this, Han Hongyi's face turned pale. He could not believe that Shi Ling would die in the assessment competition. With her reputation and strength, it was impossible for such a thing to happen. Even if Shi Ling's strength was not the opponent's, as long as she said that she was Han Xiling of Tiangang sect, the general cultivators would not dare to make a move. It was because of this that he was assured to let Shi Ling participate in the assessment competition. Who would have thought that Shi Ling would not come back this time? At this moment, Han Hongyi finally understood why he always had an ominous premonition in his heart. It turned out that the problem was here. The disciples of Tiangang Zong who were present had been completely dumbfounded. They had never thought that Han Shi Ling would fall in the assessment competition. This result was completely different from what they imagined logically speaking. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang did not come back, Han Xiling would not come back. However, now that Bailey Hongzhuang came out of the assessment competition safely, Han Xiling would never come back? Wasn't this ending a little too shocking? Oh my god, so Bailey Hongzhuang's strength is stronger? Han Xiling is actually dead. Now no one can compete with Bailey Hongzhuang. In my opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang was just lucky to come out of the assessment competition. Han Xiling must have met a powerful opponent to have an accident. Han Hongyi's face look was extremely ugly. Others did not know what was going on, but he was very clear. Logically speaking, he had already told Shi Ling that when the assessment competition started, she did not hesitate to kill Bailey Hongzhuang directly, so that she would not have any future trouble. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had now returned safely, but Han Xiling had fallen. Was it possible that Bailey Hongzhuang had killed Han Xiling? When this idea appeared in Han Hongyi's mind, even he himself felt that it was impossible. Because Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was not comparable to Shi Ling at all, and the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang's teammates was not comparable to Wu Yuexin and others. This was a sure-win situation. How could there be a problem? Han Hongyi's face became pale. He did not expect that his decision would lead to the death of his granddaughter. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing looked at each other. They did not know what to say about the situation in front of them, because all of this was simply too unexpected. Chapter 1626. Hearing Qin Ai's words, Han Hongyi's face turned even uglier. He simply couldn't believe the fact that Shi Ling died in the assessment competition. Situ Yen also said, "Great Elder, my condolences. There were many uncertain things in the assessment competition. From the moment cultivators walked into the assessment competition, life and death were up to fate. Those cultivators who were able to walk out were undoubtedly lucky. However, there were also countless cultivators who died in the assessment competition. As cultivators, they had experienced far more things than ordinary people. They should have expected this kind of thing long ago. If it wasn't for Han Hongyi being too selfish, Han Xiling wouldn't have died in the assessment competition. All of this was karma. No one else could be blamed. Sita Yan continued to look at He Ming and said, "How's the recruitment of disciples this time?" This time young sect master recruited a total of 12 disciples. Hearing He Ming's words, Sita Yan nodded slightly. According to the average, each sect should have recruited 10 disciples. Di Baichen recruited 12 disciples this time. This result was extremely good. This meant that 3 cultivators in the top 10 chose Tiangang sect. This was an extremely good result. Qin Ai and the others also smiled after hearing this result. In the past, most of the disciples recruited were around 10 people. They didn't expect the young sect master's recruitment to be exceptionally good this time. The top 10 of the top 100 had always been the targets that the major sects tried to recruit. This time they recruited 3 people. Presumably, the other sects' expressions wouldn't be good. Which sect recruited the first place of this assessment competition? Gu Jingqing asked. The first place of this assessment competition had always attracted attention. The first place joined Tiangang sect. As soon as these words came out, the elders and disciples present all revealed a joyful expression. Not only did they recruit a talent, but they also showed their faces in front of the other sects. Every time there was a big competition, the big sects would take pride in being able to get first place. Sita Yan nodded. The results of Di Baichen's recruitment this time were really satisfying. Young sect master's appearance is indeed extraordinary. Gu Jingqing couldn't help but sigh. They had never had such good results before. It was really surprising. What's the name of the first place? Which dynasty is the cultivator from? Qin Ai asked with a smile. However, He Ming's next words stunned everyone again. The first place is Bailey Hongzhuang. As soon as these words came out, there was silence. Astonished gazes focused on He Ming. They didn't dare to believe what He Ming said was true. This was too surprising, right? How is this possible? How can Bailey Hongzhuang be the first place of the assessment competition? My God, this news is too shocking. Before Bailey Hongzhuang participated in the assessment competition, she had already said that she would surpass Han Xiling and let Han Xiling admit her strength in front of everyone. He Ming's Bailey Hongzhuang. First place in the exam. This result doesn't need to be confirmed by others. This already proves Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. Chapter 1627. When Si Tian heard this answer, he was also stunned. Bailey Hongzhuang was first place in this assessment competition? This result was really unexpected. With Bailey Hongzhuang's strength at that time, she was actually able to obtain first place after 2 years. This was really surprising. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing's faces also revealed astonishment. Even though they had always hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang could obtain good results in the assessment competition, they never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang could obtain such good results. This really exceeded their expectations by too much. The first place of the assessment competition was always a talent that was valued by others. How many cultivators participated in the assessment competition? It was definitely not easy to stand out among so many cultivators. Usually, the first place of the assessment competition was a cultivator from a large empire. They had never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to achieve such a result. It was a bit too amazing. After hearing this news, Han Hongyi's originally pale face instantly became extremely ugly. He simply couldn't believe that Xiling had died in the small world and Bailey Hongzhuang actually became first place in the assessment competition. This was simply something that couldn't possibly happen. This is impossible. Han Hongyi immediately said, with Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, how could she obtain first place? There must be a problem in this. Following Han Hongyi's words, Si Tian and the rest all frowned. They didn't think that Han Hongyi would actually lose his composure like this. First Elder. The first place of this assessment competition was obtained by the cultivators with their own strength. How could there be a problem? Teen AI's voice was slightly heavy. The assessment competition had always been fair and just. How could there be a problem? Han Hongyi couldn't care about this at this moment and said, Bailey Hongzhuang must have used some method. First Elder, you have no evidence. You're slandering people by saying this. Si Tian couldn't help but speak up. Even if Han Hongyi's granddaughter had died, he wouldn't allow Han Hongyi to insult his granddaughter like this. From the first time he saw Bailey Hongzhuang, he liked Bailey Hongzhuang very much. He didn't know the reason before, but now he finally understood. This was the kinship of blood. Even though they had never met or interacted with each other before, there was an indescribable sense of familiarity when they met. The gazes of the others changed a little when they looked at Han Hongyi. In their opinion, Han Hongyi was slandering them. Even if this result was unacceptable to him, it was beneath him to say such baseless words. Hearing Si Tian's warning, Han Hongyi came back to his senses and quickly said, Bailey Hongzhuang probably asked her teammates to give all their points to her. That's why she could get such a result. Everyone's expression changed slightly when they heard this. If Bailey Hongzhuang really did that, it was not impossible. In fact, there were quite a number of cultivators who used such methods during the assessment. Many people felt that it was impossible for them to get on the list with their points. For the sake of the dynasty, they would give all their points to the same cultivator. This way, the possibility of getting on the list would be much higher. However, everyone couldn't help but think of Xia Jiqing and the others. The cultivation of Xia Jiqing and the others was not high. Even if they went to the assessment competition, their points would not be much. Chapter 1628. What the disciples could think of, the elders could naturally think of as well. In their opinion, the first elder was really twisting words and forcing logic. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang and Han Xiling had conflicts, Han Hongyi, as an elder, should not say such a thing. Not only did he lose his demeanor, but he was also making a joke of himself. Han Hongyi did not care about other people's thoughts at the moment, and was completely stubborn. In any case, he could not believe that this was the true strength of Bailey Hongzhuang. However, He Ming's next words made Han Hongyi's face become even uglier. The sect master has already recruited Gong Shaoqing, Dong Fangyu, Xia Jiqing and Bai Junyu back to the sect. As soon as these words came out, everyone could not help but be stunned for a moment. In their view, Bailey Hongzhuang being able to get such a result was already very surprising. The strength of Xia Jiqing and the others was absolutely impossible to climb into the top 100. As a result, could it be that the young sect master had recruited them back? No wonder there were 12 cultivators. Maybe this was the result of the young sect master's favoritism. Thinking of this, everyone's mood was a little bad. In their eyes, the young sect master, who had always been excellent and fair, should not do such a thing. However, He Ming's next sentence had already explained the reason extremely well, allowing everyone to understand one after another. Gong Shaoqing, Dong Fangyu, Xia Jiqing and Bai Junyu are all cultivators in the top 30 of the top 100. Among them, Gong Shaoqing is 27th, Dong Fangyu is 28th, Bai Junyu is 29th, and Xia Jiqing is 30th. It is because of this that the young sect master recruited them back to the sect because they originally represented the sect to participate in the assessment. He Ming's eyes were cold. The great elder was already a stumbling block, and now he even slandered the young lady. It was really disgusting. Listening to He Ming's explanation, the disciples of Tiangang sect were dumbfounded again. How is this possible? They are all in the top 30 of the top 100? Not only that, their rankings are very close. This is unbelievable. So, the great elder's previous guess is not valid at all. If Bailey Hongzhuang really took away the points of Xia Jiqing and the others, how could Xia Jiqing and the others have such results? This time, the performance of the Zhonglan College's cultivators is really amazing. What kind of fortuitous encounter did they have during the assessment? The crowd of disciples felt that it was inconceivable. Logically speaking, this was something that should be impossible. Among the cultivators present, there were some who had participated in the assessment competition before. They knew very well how difficult it was to climb to the top 100. Generally speaking, cultivators who could appear on the top 100 were almost all cultivators from large empires. Occasionally, there would be a few cultivators from medium empires who rushed up, and they were considered dark horses. However, Xiaojiqing and the others were just from a small or medium-sized dynasty. The Kanglin College was only famous in this level of dynasty. But to a large empire, such an academy had no influence at all. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were able to achieve such amazing results. This was simply too unbelievable. If possible, they really wanted to suspect if He Ming was wrong. However, they also knew that the possibility of them being wrong was close to zero. Chapter 1629. Their results are actually so good? Qin Ai was a little stunned. Such results were really unexpected. Bailey Hongzhuang's results had already given them a huge surprise. They did not expect the results of Xiaojiqing and the others to be so pleasantly surprised. In this way, not only did Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was excellent, but the performance of Xiaojiqing and the others was also very outstanding. It seemed that in this assessment competition, their Tiangang sect really showed their face. He Ming nodded, yes. The performance of these little guys this time is really amazing. Gu Jingqing chuckled. This result was much better than they had imagined. No one thought that these little guys would be so promising. It seemed that they had been worried for nothing. There was also a smile in Si Tuyan's eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang and her friends' results were very good this time. What about Wu Yuexin and the others? Han Hongyi asked. Wu Yuexin's performance at the time was only second to Bailey Hongzhuang. He believed that this result should not be bad. Except for the people I just mentioned, Wu Yuexin and the others did not come back. He Ming said. Han Hongyi could not help but take 2 steps back. His face became extremely ugly. Completely annihilated. Completely annihilated. Han Hongyi could not believe it at all. The strength of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others was obviously not as strong as Xi Ling. This should be a sure win situation. How could they lose? Han Hongyi could not understand. How could they lose in such a sure win situation? He could not help but have an idea in his mind. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others killed them? When this thought surfaced, even Han Hongyi himself found it ridiculous. How could such a thing happen? If Xi Ling died in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang, didn't that mean that Xi Ling's strength was not even as good as a girl from a remote village? While Han Hongyi kept thinking, Si Tuyan also understood in his heart. At the beginning, Han Hongyi bought Wu Yuexin and the others to help Han Xiling deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. Now Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came back safely, but Han Xiling and the others did not come back. The most direct and simple guess was that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others killed Han Xiling and the others. At the beginning, he did not care about this kind of thing. In his opinion, Han Hongyi should not do such a thing. After all, the matters between the younger generation should be solved by the younger generation themselves. The competition between them should be completed by themselves. As elders, they would not intervene in this kind of thing. However, he didn't expect that Han Hongyi would actually make a move. Not only did he make a move, but he also went overboard. It was truly beyond his expectations. However, the result was completely different from what Han Hongyi had expected. He had sent his granddaughter underground, but none of Wu Yuexin and the others had returned. All of this was retribution. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others must have used a conspiracy to kill Xi Ling and the others. Han Hongyi's face was full of anger. He only had Xi Ling left in the world. He brought Xi Ling up from a young age. From the crying child to the beautiful woman who grew up now. He had always been full of hope for Xi Ling and was proud of it. As long as Xi Ling became the wife of the young master of Tiangang sect, then she would really embark on a broad road in the future. However, now Xi Ling was dead. All his hopes were destroyed. Chapter 1630. Han Hongyi couldn't accept all this at all. Originally, Han Xiling should have smoothly become the young sect mistress of Tiangang sect, and as the great elder of Tiangang sect, his position would be more stable. All these should be completed smoothly, but now it was completely destroyed. He couldn't believe it at all. Hate. A strong hatred suddenly emerged in Han Hongyi's heart. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang, how could he have fallen to such a state? All of this was ruined because of Bailey Hongzhuang. When he thought of this, Han Hongyi hated that he couldn't kill Bailey Hongzhuang. Han Hongyi's murderous intent didn't escape the eyes of Si Tu-yen and the others. It seemed that Han Hongyi also believed that Han Shiling's death was related to Bailey Hongzhuang. No matter who killed Han Shiling, it was a matter of the assessment competition. As everyone knew, everything that happened in the assessment competition was within the permitted scope. In fact, everyone understood that the reason why Han Hongyi let Han Shiling participate in the assessment competition was to let them compete. When the two fought, there would be people who were happy and people who were worried. Han Hongyi should have been mentally prepared. Si Tu-yan's eyes changed a little. It seemed that he had to be wary of Han Hongyi. His granddaughter, no one was allowed to have any thoughts about her. Great Elder, once you enter the assessment competition, life and death are up to fate. Out of the assessment competition, everything is no longer calculative. You should be clearer than anyone about this point. Si Tu-yan said slowly. Hearing Si Tu-yan's words, Han Hongyi raised his head in shock and astonishment. He couldn't believe that the sect master would say such words to him. These words were clearly a warning. The sect master was warning him not to lay a hand on Bailey Hongzhuang. This meant that the sect master was standing on Bailey Hongzhuang's side? The disciples present were stunned for a moment after hearing the sect master's words. The sect master's attitude was to protect Bailey Hongzhuang. After a short moment of astonishment, Han Hongyi also understood. Now that Xi Ling was dead, no one would compete with Bailey Hongzhuang. Moreover, Bailey Hongzhuang had already proven her strength with the results of the assessment. In this way, she and young sect master could be said to be together in the right and proper way, without such a huge obstacle. Adding on to the fact that young sect master liked her, her position as young sect master's madam was practically secured. Everyone knew that the dead had no value. Even if Xi Ling's reputation in Tiangang sect was so good, now that she had fallen, everything was meaningless. However, he was unwilling to give up. He was not willing to let his granddaughter fall like this. He was not willing to let Bailey Hongzhuang sit in the position that originally belonged to Xi Ling. He would definitely avenge Xi Ling. Han Hongyi had already made up his mind, but he didn't show it on his face. This was because the sect master and the others were already paying attention to him. If he made it too obvious, everyone would definitely be on guard against him. Therefore, he needed to plan everything at length. Sect master, I'm a little uncomfortable. I'll take my leave first. Han Hongyi said. Everything that happened today was too complicated. His heart was too chaotic. He had to go back and think about it carefully. Hearing this, Si Tu-yen waved his hand in motion for Han Hongyi to leave first. After Han Hongyi left, Si Tu-yen glanced at Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing. The three people's expressions were somewhat complicated. Chapter 1631. Qin Ai and the others had been with Han Hongyi for many years. Therefore, they also had some understanding of Han Hongyi's character. Han Shiling had always been the person Han Hongyi cared about the most. Now that Han Shiling was dead, Han Hongyi would never let it go easily. It seemed that there would still be some troubles that needed to be solved later. Si Tu-yen did not say much about this matter. Instead, he looked at the others and said, "Everyone go back. Farewell, sect master." Everyone bowed. Si Tu-yen slowly walked in the direction of the palace and disappeared from everyone's sight. Qin Ai and the other elders looked at each other and did not stay for a long time. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others would not come back for the time being. They did not need to be too worried. After the sect master and the elders left, the disciples of Tiangang sect were in an uproar. I bet that Han Shiling died in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence? At the beginning they went as a team. Han Shiling and the others are all dead. But Bailey Hongzhuang and the others are all safe and sound? I think so too. I really didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others would be so powerful. Do you think that they have hidden their strength before, just waiting for Han Shiling to participate in the assessment competition to get rid of him? Han Shiling is usually so arrogant. Compared to him, I think Bailey Hongzhuang is better. Everyone had different thoughts. The only thing they had in common was that they knew that the time for Han Shiling had passed. The next most influential woman in Tiangang sect was Bailey Hongzhuang. defeating Han Xiling, becoming the first in the assessment competition, and having the care of the young sect master. Bailey Hongzhuang's transformation from a sparrow to a phoenix was already set in stone. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked on a narrow path. They did not know what kind of shock their matter had caused in Tiangang's sect. In fact, Xia Jiqing and the others also wanted to know what kind of expression the Great Elder would have when he learned that Han Xiling was dead. That old fox actually wanted to catch them all in one fell swoop during the assessment competition. Fortunately, they had made great progress. Coupled with Di Beichen's protection, they had been able to walk safely until now. Come to think of it, the first elder's feeling of trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it must have made him collapse. For this matter, Xia Jiqing and the others only thought about it in their hearts and did not say it out loud. After all, Han Xiling was Di Beichen's junior sister. They had already made up their minds not to tell anyone about this matter. Even if everyone guessed that Han Xiling had died in their hands, there was no evidence, so nothing could be confirmed. At that time, no matter how much the first elder hated them, it would still be useless. Along with the increase in their strength, the speed of their journey had also increased by quite a bit. The next day, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman planned to say goodbye to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Boss, young sect master, we can find a flying beast as soon as possible and return to the Snow Origin dynasty, so we will take our leave here. Yuan Jixin's face was full of smiles as he said to Bailey Hongzhuang and Yuan Xiaoman. Now he only hoped to return to his family as soon as possible. When he thought of the scene of his family welcoming him back, he could not help but feel excited. Chapter 1632. You guys go, be careful on the road, see you in 3 months. Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate and beautiful face rippled with a light smile like a breeze. She waved her hand at Yuan Jixin and Yuan Jixin. Remember to say hello to brother Yuan and Liqing for me. Di Beichen also nodded. Now he already knew the identity of Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Jixin. He didn't expect that Hongzhuang would meet the cultivators of the Yuan family in the assessment competition. It was really fate. Boss, don't worry, we will. Yuan Xiaoman's face was full of smiles. If Liqing knew that she and the boss had become teammates and would cultivate together in Tiangang's sect in the future, Liqing would be excited to death. Xia Jiqing and the others also waved at Yuan Xiaoman. Their faces were full of smiles. In the future they would cultivate together in Tiangang's sect. After Yuan Xiaoman left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had been rushing, only hoping to return to Kanglin College as soon as possible. After 10 days of rushing, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally arrived at Kanglin College. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others appeared in Kanglin City, there was a burst of exclamation in Kanglin City. Oh my god, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others are back. It's already been 2 years. I heard that they went to participate in the assessment competition. Are they back safe and sound now? My Dongfang Senior is still so handsome. I haven't seen him for 2 years. His handsomeness hasn't decreased. Gong Shaoqing is still cold and chic. I feel that life is hopeless when they are not here. The eyes of the students of Kanglin College were tightly twisted on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others 2 years ago. The cultivators of the special enrollment class had always been their idols. However, since the beginning of the assessment competition, almost all the cultivators of the special enrollment class had left. There were only 3 people left: Lu Qingyue, Zhang Yunfeng and Cui Haoyan. The number of cultivators in the special enrollment class suddenly decreased so much. Everyone was naturally very concerned. Many people guessed that they had gone to participate in the assessment competition. Now 2 years had passed and they had all returned. At this moment, everyone was almost certain that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had gone to participate in the assessment competition. Who are these people? Why is everyone so excited? When the students of Kanglin School saw the craziness of the other students, they couldn't help but have a strange look on their faces. Who was this person? Why was it able to make everyone so crazy? You don't know about this, but they are the cultivators from the special enrollment class 2 years ago. They are Gong Shaoqing, Dong Fangyu, Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, Bai Junyu and Xia Jiqing. As soon as he said this, the students who were originally confused became excited. Oh my god! Is that woman in white Bailey Hongzhuang? I came to the Azure Water School to cultivate because I knew about her performance in the inter-school tournament. I thought that I would never see them again. I didn't expect that I would have the chance to see them today. This is really a pleasant surprise. The cultivators from the special enrollment class are back. For a time, the students of Kanglin College went crazy. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others saw the excited appearance of the students of Kanglin College, their faces couldn't help but show a smile. Chapter 1633. We're finally back again. Xia Jiqing's face was filled with an excited smile. The scenes that happened 2 years ago at Songlan College were still deeply imprinted in her mind. Now that they were back again, she felt an unspeakable joy and nostalgia. Boss, this is where we met. Xia Jiqing pointed to the restaurant and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. If Tong Xingyi had not taken the initiative to find trouble with Boss, she was afraid that she would not have had the opportunity to become friends with Boss, and would not have reached this point. Speaking of which, Xia Jiqing was somewhat grateful to Tong Shangyi. Without Tong Shangyi, how could she achieve what she had now? Looking in the direction that Xia Jiqing was pointing at, the smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips rose a little as she said, "Yes, this is where we met." Gong Shaoqing and Dong Fangyu looked at each other, their faces showing a big smile. It seems that we are going to Elegant Cloud Residence to drink tonight. I haven't been back for so long. I really miss the taste of Elegant Cloud Residence. Dong Fangyu laughed. Me too. Xia Jiqing agreed. I want to eat too. When the three beasts heard about food, they immediately became excited. In the past 2 years, they had been in a state of mental tension during the assessment. How could they have time to care about food? Therefore, they had been eating bland and tasteless dry food which was really not delicious. If they had been living in the small world, they would really feel that life was boring. Now that they were finally out of the small world, they had been in a hurry before and had not had a good meal. Now that they had arrived at Songlan City, they could finally eat delicious food. Looking at the excited appearance of the three beasts, everyone could not help but laugh. Speaking of which, the three beasts were really funny. No matter when, as long as there was food, they would be happy. Bailey Hongzhuang patted the heads of the three beasts and said, "Don't worry, you can eat as much as you want tonight." She knew that these three gluttonous guys had been holding back for a long time. Now that they were out of the small world, what was the harm in letting them have a good meal? Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasts looked at each other and the smiles on their faces gradually widened. Long live Master. Master, I love you. Master, you're the best. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. These three little fellows were getting better and better at bootlicking. Xia Jiqing and the others looked at the appearance of the three beasts and felt that it was really interesting. Xiao Feng and Xiao, who were still very young and did not have the naughty character of the three beasts. They looked very docile and cute. Looks like the three of them haven't been eating well during this period of time. Blackwood looked at the three beasts. Thinking back to when they were in the Bloodground Abyss, the three beasts ate quite a lot every day. Seeing Heimu's appearance, the three beasties immediately jumped down from Bailey Hongzhuang's body and onto Heimu. Blackwood. Xiao Hei squinted her eyes and rubbed against Heimu. After being apart for so long, she really missed Heimu. Xiao Bai and Bai Shi lay on Heimu's body, their faces filled with bliss. Thinking back to the time when she was with Darkwood, they really had endless delicious food and lived happily every day. Now that they saw Blackwood again, they felt especially close to him. Chapter 1634. Xia Jiqing and the others saw that the three beasts were so enthusiastic about Heimu, and their faces showed surprise. It seems that the three beasts like Heimu very much. Xia Jiqing's eyes flashed with surprise. She had been with the three beasts for a long time, and their relationship was very good, but obviously not to the extent of Heimu. The eyes of Gong Shaoqing and the others also fell on Heimu. Heimu rarely appeared, and so far they had only seen Heimu a few times. When did the three beasts start to be so familiar with Heimu? Looking at the puzzled look of everyone, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and explained, "When I went to experience before, it was Heimu who took care of their food. Because Heimu gave them too much delicious food, they were particularly intimate when they saw Heimu. When participating in the assessment, She often heard the three little guys mention Hey Moo. Now that they finally saw him, it was normal for them to be excited. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation, Xia Jiqing and the others recovered, and their faces showed a smile of understanding. So that's how it is. Bai Junyu chuckled. These three foodies, as long as there is food, everything is okay. Xia Jiqing couldn't help but laugh. In terms of delicious food, she was afraid that no contract beast could compare to Xiao He and Xiao Bai. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. Who made her contract beasts love to eat so much? Under the cheers of the cultivators, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others slowly walked into the college. Looking at the extremely familiar Azure Water School, every blade of grass and every tree here gave them a feeling of nostalgia. The seniors of the special enrollment class are back. Our college will be lively in the future. Go and inform the principal and the mentors. But all the students who knew Gong Xiaoqing and the others couldn't help but show excitement on their faces at this moment. It was really exciting to see such a famous person again. The news swept through the entire Conglan city like the wind, and everyone was talking about it. After all, everyone originally guessed that Gong Xiaoqing and the others had gone to participate in the assessment. Now that they were back, it meant that they had safely walked out of the assessment. Presumably, their strength had also improved a lot. They had only heard of the assessment, but almost no one could participate. Now that they could see the cultivators who participated in the assessment, the excitement in their hearts could be imagined. Special Enrollment Dormitory. Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng were practicing in the room when they suddenly heard a noise outside. Both of them couldn't help but have a look of doubt in their eyes. Conglan College rarely had such a commotion. Could it be that something had happened? Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng opened the door almost at the same time. The two of them looked at each other, their eyes flashing with confusion. What's going on? Zhang Yunfeng frowned slightly. Such a huge commotion was a little too frightening. Cui Haoyan shook his head, his face full of thoughts. With such a big commotion, something big must have happened. Let's go out and take a look. Zhang Yunfeng nodded. Okay. It wasn't just Cui Haoyan and Li Tianlan. The students who joined the special admissions class later also ran out after sensing the commotion. They had never encountered such a thing before, so they couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Chapter 1635. Senior Cui, what's going on? The new students of the special enrollment class could not help but ask after seeing Cui Haoyan appear. Yeah, what's going on? All the students looked at Cui Haoyan in confusion. In the entire special enrollment class, Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng had stayed in Kanglan College the longest and were also the strongest. Usually, no matter what happened, it was Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng who informed them. Therefore, they were used to asking Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng for everything. Hearing everyone's questions, Cui Haoyan shook his head. I don't know what happened. Let's go out and see. Seeing that Cui Haoyan was not clear, everyone's eyes were filled with surprise. Then what was going on? Let's go out and see, Cui Haoyan said and walked forward with Zhang Yunfeng. However, before they walked out of the dormitory building, a figure rushed in. Seeing the person, everyone's eyes lit up and asked, Xiaoyingjie, what's going on outside? Xiaoyingjie looked at the curious crowd and said with a sigh, It's said that the cultivators from the previous special enrollment class have returned. Everyone is cheering. Hearing this, the new students of the special enrollment class could not help but be puzzled. Cultivators from the previous special enrollment class? Those were the students who had already graduated. Why did their return cause such a stir? Could it be that after they graduated, they would also cause such a sensation when they returned? However, after hearing Xiaoyingjie's words, Zhang Yunfeng and Cui Haoyan could not help but look at each other. A bright light appeared in their eyes. It must be Gong Xiaoqing and the others, Cui Haoyan immediately said. Zhang Yunfeng also nodded. Thinking about it, only Gong Xiaoqing and the others could cause such a sensation in the college. Thinking back to when Gong Xiaoqing and Dong Fangyu were in the college, their reputation was extremely resounding and attracted thousands of students. Later, after Gong Xiaoqing and the others left, the students of Kanglan College lamented for a long time. Now that they had returned, it was normal to cause such a sensation. Yes, it's them. After hearing this familiar name, Xiaoyingjie quickly nodded. After getting Xiaoyingjie's affirmation, the smiles on Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng's faces deepened. They immediately rushed outside. After not seeing each other for 2 years, they really missed this group of old friends. Xiaoyingjie and the other newcomers looked at each other. They had also heard of the reputation of Gong Xiaoqing and the others, but they never knew that they had such a great influence in the college. Wasn't this commotion a little too frightening? While Cui Haoyan and Wang Yao rushed out excitedly, the same thing was happening in another place. Alchemist Association. Lu Qingyue was refining pills. These days she had been a little restless. She forced herself to calm down and refine pills. Back then, Big Brother Gong had left to participate in the selection for the assessment competition. Later on, Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng had returned with a piece of news. Brother Gong and the rest had all gone to participate in the assessment competition. For the assessment competition, she could only wait here for 2 years. She didn't know much about the assessment, so she kept asking her master about it. Chapter 1636. As Lu Qingyue continued to talk and listen to the news of the previous assessment competitions, the more she understood, the more worried she became. According to what everyone said, the assessment competition was extremely dangerous, and losing one's life was a common occurrence. With so many talented cultivators gathered together, the slightest bit of carelessness could cause one to stay there forever. Every time she heard such cruel news, her heart would tremble. She was afraid that if Big Brother Gong never came back, what should she do? As the 2 years gradually passed, the worry in her heart became more and more intense. Before the 2 years were up, she could still comfort herself. But now that the 2 years were up, if she still didn't see Big Brother Gong, it meant that Big Brother Gong had encountered danger and might never come back. Thinking of this, Lu Qingyue felt uncomfortable in her heart, so uncomfortable that even breathing was difficult. As the days passed, her heart became even more chaotic. If Big Brother Gong didn't come back in a few days, then there really wouldn't be any hope. Therefore, she only hoped that time would pass slower, so that she could continue to wait with hope. At this moment, a figure quickly ran into the Alchemist Guild. Miss Lu, Gong Xiaoqing and the rest are back. Hearing this, Lu Qingyue couldn't help but be stunned. That delicate and beautiful face was instantly filled with ecstasy. She didn't care about the pill she was refining and quickly walked to the cultivator's side and asked, "Is what you said true? Are they really back?" "They're back, they're really back." After hearing the other party's confirmation, Lu Qingyue's eyes revealed an unconcealable ecstasy. She waited for so long and finally waited for Big Brother Gong to come back. Luckily, they walked out of the assessment competition safely. In the next moment, without waiting for the cultivator to react, Lu Qingyue had already rushed out of the Alchemist Guild. The cultivator stared blankly at the direction Lu Qingyue left in, his face filled with doubt. He had never seen Miss Li lose her self-control like this. Chi! A muffled sound came from the pill furnace, following which a burnt smell spread out. The cultivator stared blankly at the pill furnace that emitted an unpleasant smell. Miss Lu didn't even care about the pill? At this moment, Lu Qingyue only had one thought in her mind, and that was to quickly see Gong Xiaoqing. As for medicinal pills or other things, she didn't care at all. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked all the way forward, and not long after, 2 familiar figures appeared in front of them. Looking at the 2 figures, the faces of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others showed a smile. Cui Haoyan. Dongfang Yu smiled. Cui Haoyan walked up and gave Dongfang Yu a punch. Then, under the astonished gazes of the students, the 2 of them hugged each other. "Good boy, you came back safely." Cui Haoyan joked, but his face was full of joy. When he left Heavenly Dipper sect, his mood was extremely complicated. On one hand, he felt that he couldn't fight side by side with Dongfang Yu and the others. On the other hand, he was worried that he wouldn't be able to see them again. Fortunately, now that everyone had returned safely, he could be at ease. Zhang Yunfeng also walked in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Xia Jiqing, her face full of joy. "Hongzhuang, Jiqing, you're finally back." Chapter 1637. When they were cultivating in the academy, their relationship was very good. Now that they had not seen each other for 2 years, they felt happy to see each other again. How have you been in the Kanglin Academy for the past 2 years? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a smile. Zhan Yunfeng nodded and then shook her head. Except for not being able to see you guys, everything else is very good. When only she and Cui Haoyan returned to the Kanglin Academy, they could not help but feel a sense of loss. They had been with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others for so long that they had long been used to being together. Now that only the two of them were left, they naturally felt very bored when they returned to the academy. Although the academy later recruited new students and the special enrollment class also had new students, it was not the same for them. Without familiar companions, they felt very bored when they cultivated. It was precisely because of this that now that they saw everyone back, they could not help but be happy. Haha, Yunfeng, you really know how to talk. Xia Jiqing teased. Zhan Yunfeng's eyes were serious. I'm telling the truth. The next moment, Zhan Yunfeng's eyes fell on Di Beichen again. When she first learned about the identity of Di Beichen at the academy tournament, she was already very shocked, but it was not until she went to Tiangang sect that she really understood what kind of person Di Beichen was. Now that Hong Zhuang was out of the assessment tournament, Di Beichen also came back with her. It could be seen that the relationship between the two was still very good. Thinking of this, the smile in Zhan Yunfeng's eyes deepened. Look, their relationship with Cui Haoyan and Zhan Yunfeng is so good. Gong Haoyan and the others in Cui Haoyan are students of the same batch. Their relationship is naturally very good, but they later went to participate in the assessment tournament, so they were not in the academy. I don't know how Gong Haoyan and the others did in the assessment tournament. Now that they are back, everyone's welcome is really a bit scary. I don't know, but I think that the cultivators who can come out of the assessment tournament alive are already very good. Everyone was talking about it. It was rare for the academy to be so lively. They were curious. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were busy catching up, a gentle and pleasant voice suddenly rang out. Brother Gong. This call was filled with urgency, joy, and longing. Upon hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others all turned to look. They were very familiar with that voice. Other than Lu Qingyue, who else could it be? Turning around, everyone saw Lu Qingyue standing not far behind them. He saw that Lu Qingyue was still wearing a hibiscus-colored dress. Her delicate and beautiful face was the same as before, but it was even more beautiful and moving. Her face was slightly red and her forehead was covered in sweat. Obviously, she had run all the way here. Seeing the appearance of Lu Qingyue, the faces of the students present changed again. It seems that the two beauties of the Azure Water School are really worthy of their reputation. When I first saw Lu Qingyue, I was already shocked. Today I saw Bailey Haoyan, but she is not worse than Lu Qingyue. I think she is even better. If you don't see it with your own eyes, you really can't imagine it. Only when you really see it can you understand the shock. Chapter 1638. The eyes of many cultivators present fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Everyone had only seen Lu Qingyue in the Azure Water School for so long, but for Bailey Hongzhuang, who was as famous as Lu Qingyue, they had only heard of her, but had never seen her in person. Seeing her today, they found that the rumors were true. Bailey Hongzhuang was really amazing. Compared to Lu Qingyue's gentle beauty, Bailey Hongzhuang was more delicate and strong. Her eyes revealed an unyielding look, and the aura exuding from her body was even more amazing. After 2 years of experience, Bailey Hongzhuang's temperament and aura had become more obvious than before. She was really magnificent. Therefore, looking at her again, everyone felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was more in line with the cultivator's aesthetic. Listening to Lu Qingyue's call, Gong Shaoqing's eyes also fell on Lu Qingyue's body. His cold eyes quietly changed a bit. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other, and a teasing light appeared in their eyes. Gong Shaoqing and Lu Qingyue had known each other for so long, but they still hadn't been together. They really hoped that this time the two of them could be together. Qingyue. Gong Shaoqing slowly said. Lu Qingyue stepped forward and directly walked in front of Gong Shaoqing. The longing and joy in her eyes were not hidden at all. Big brother Gong, fortunately you came back. Lu Qingyue couldn't hide her emotions. Her eyes were slightly red, and crystal clear tears quietly emerged. She couldn't control them at all. In the past 2 years she had been living in fear, worried that Big Brother Gong would not be able to return. Every time in the dead of night she would think, if Big Brother Gong didn't come back, what should she do? If Big Brother Gong came back, there were already other women by his side, what should she do? If Big Brother Gong didn't want to come back, what should she do? With all these emotions intertwined, she only felt that she was going crazy. She always understood that Big Brother Gong only treated her as a sister, and Big Brother Gong also made this point very clear. However, she was still unwilling to give up. As long as there were no other women by Big Brother Gong's side, she would not give up. At least for her, she only had Big Brother Gong in her heart. No one else could come in. She would persist until she knew there was no hope. Now that Big Brother Gong had come back, she only felt that all her worries were completely put down. Under this kind of joy she couldn't control her tears. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at Lu Qinyue's appearance. As women, they were very clear about how hard it was for Lu Qinyue to come all this way. They also admired her persistence in this relationship. Unfortunately, they couldn't completely, and they couldn't help. After all, Lu Qinyue's feelings had been expressed very clearly. It was just that Gong Xiaoqing had never understood all this. They could not casually matchmake them. If the situation was not as they thought, then their matchmaking would be no different from harming them. Therefore, they could only hope they would be able to be happy. Gong Xiaoqing nodded slightly, and the cold arc on his face also became gentler. I said I'll come back safely. Chapter 1639. Seeing Lu Qinyue like this, Gong Xiaoqing also panicked. He immediately approached Lu Qinyue and handed a handkerchief to Lu Qinyue. Don't cry. I've already returned safely. Why are you still crying? Gong Xiaoqing comforted Lu Qinyue. Seeing Lu Qinyue like this, he knew that Lu Qinyue must have been worried about him these days. Lu Qinyue took the handkerchief and wiped her tears. Her pretty face revealed a smile. I'm just too happy. After seeing this scene, how could the students not understand that Lu Qinyue and Gong Xiaoqing had feelings for each other? For a moment, many men's hearts were broken. One must know that Lu Qinyue had always been the goddess in their hearts. Many men wanted to pursue Lu Qinyue, but Lu Qinyue never responded. Although there was no response, everyone didn't care. After all, they weren't the only ones who didn't respond. No response, this meant that they still had hope. Moreover, in such a long time, they had never seen another man by Lu Qinyue's side. No one would have thought that the person in Lu Qinyue's heart was actually Gong Xiaoqing. Now that Gong Xiaoqing had returned, all the fantasies in their hearts would be completely shattered. Heavens, Lu Qinyue actually likes Gong Qinyue. I hate that. Doesn't that mean that we don't have any chance at all? The group of women looked at the heartbroken men and smiled. I've already said that Lu Qinyue's heart must belong to someone else. It's impossible for her to fancy you. Now you should give up. Just by looking at the scene of Lu Qinyue and Gong Xiaoqing getting along, they could understand that the two of them had deep feelings for each other. It wasn't something that others could destroy. Lu Qinyue has no hope, but Bai Li Qinyue still has hope. The group of male disciples once again ignited hope. Although they lost Lu Qinyue, they had Bai Li Qinyue. This was also extremely good. Yes, Bai Li Qinyue is so beautiful and powerful. She's really the goddess in my heart. In the future, the person I admire is Bai Li Qinyue. The group of male students expressed their opinions. At least they still had hope in their hearts. After seeing this scene, the female students also frowned, but there was nothing they could do. However, in the next moment, the sound of hearts breaking rang out again. When Di Beichen heard that so many male students actually dared to covet his wife, he was stunned. What a joke! That would depend on whether he agreed or not. Then, under the astonished eyes of the students, Di Beichen directly grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder, declaring his sovereignty. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw Di Beichen suddenly hugging her, her clear eyes couldn't help but be filled with a hint of surprise. However, she quickly understood and the smile in her eyes couldn't help but deepen. It had been 2 years since they last met, but Beichen's jealous nature had not changed at all. Facing Bailey Hongzhuang's teasing gaze, Dibaichen didn't care at all. Hong Zhuang was his wife. She was his legal wife. Other people couldn't even get close. Cui Haoyan saw that there were more and more students around. It wasn't convenient for everyone to continue chatting here. He immediately suggested, "Why don't we go back to the dormitory first?" Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others nodded in agreement. "Okay, let's go back first." Chapter 1640. Under the gaze of the students, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to the special enrollment dormitory. Looking at the red house again, everyone's eyes were filled with nostalgia. The principal and vice principal knew that you went to participate in the assessment competition, so this house has been kept for you, Cui Haoyan said with a smile. Really? Everyone was surprised. They didn't think that this house would be kept for them. It was too surprising. Cui Haoyan nodded slightly. It's true. The key is still in your hands. Open it and you will know. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang, Dibaichen, Bai Junyu and Xia Jiqing all opened the door of the room. They saw that the furnishings in the house were the same as when they left. There was no change. Seeing this scene, everyone's heart was moved. No one knew if they would come back again, but the Kanglin College had been keeping the dormitory for them. How could this not be moved? This house is very clean. Has anyone helped us clean it? Xia Jiqing looked at the clean and cheerful house in surprise. It was reasonable to say that they hadn't lived in it for 2 years. The house should be covered with a lot of dust. She didn't expect it to be so clean now. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also looked at Cui Haoyan and Zhang Yunfeng. Obviously, only the two of them could give an answer. Zhang Yunfeng smiled slightly. We will find someone to help you clean the house every once in a while. So when you come back, you can directly live there. Yunfeng, thank you. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was sincere and full of gratitude. Just from this action, one could see Yunfeng's affection for them. Zhang Yunfeng smiled and waved her hand. This is a small matter. We are looking forward to you coming back safely. Since that's the case, why don't we sit in my house? Bai Junyu suggested. Everyone nodded. They hadn't seen each other for so long and had a lot to talk about. As everyone walked into the house, Lu Qingyue and Gong Shaoqing were still outside. Dong Fengyu directly closed the door. We will talk about our things. You can talk about yours. As soon as he finished speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others in the room couldn't help but laugh. Outside the room, Gong Shaoqing looked at the tightly shut door in front of him, a deep sense of helplessness surfacing on his face. He should have expected this group of people to do this. Lu Qingyue stood behind Gong Shaoqing. Her pretty face was slightly red and she was at a loss. Gong Shaoqing turned around and looked at the beautiful and gentle Lu Qingyue in front of him. He slowly said, Qingyue, why don't we go to my house? Obviously, it was impossible for these guys to let him in. Qingyue probably also had a lot to say to him. It was better for them to have a good chat. Hearing Gong Shaoqing's words, Lu Qingyue nodded and said softly, okay. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Gong Shaoqing's face. Then he walked upstairs with Lu Qingyue. Dong Fengyu and Cui Haoyan leaned against the door and listened to the movements outside. When they heard the footsteps gradually fade away, smiles appeared on their faces. They've already left. Dong Fengyu said with a smile. Zhang Yufeng helplessly looked at Cui Haoyan and Lu Qingyue and said, you guys are too bad. Dong Fengyu chuckled. His peach blossom eyes were raised, revealing playfulness and craftiness. Chapter 1641. Listening to Dong Fengyu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also nodded their heads. That's right, they really should have a good talk. Qingyue has been waiting for Gong Shaoqing for many years. Zhang Yunfeng's pretty face was filled with a bit of helplessness. In these 2 years, she knew how Lu Qingyue had survived. In comparison, although she wasn't as beautiful as Lu Qingyue and couldn't compare to Lu Qingyue's identity as an alchemist, at least Cui Haoyan had always been very good to her. As a woman, she felt that this was the most important point. Not counting the 2 years of the exam, Lu Qingyue had been in love with Gong Shaoqing for a long time. If this continued, She really didn't know when Lu Qingyue would be able to wait for the arrival of feelings. I hope Xiaoqing can be enlightened this time. It's not easy to find a woman who treats you sincerely in this world. Dong Fengyu sighed. As Gong Xiaoqing's brother for so many years, he naturally hoped that Gong Xiaoqing could be happy. Whether Gong Xiaoqing treated Lu Qingyue as a sister or as a beloved woman, at least Gong Xiaoqing treated Lu Qingyue differently. He believed that if Gong Xiaoqing really treated Lu Qingyue as a sister and didn't have any feelings for her, Gong Xiaoqing wouldn't have such an attitude. He will understand, he just needs some time. Di Beichen continued. He could see that Gong Xiaoqing didn't know what kind of feelings he had for Lu Qingyue, so he needed some time to think clearly. He believed that as long as Gong Xiaoqing carefully thought about this matter, he would definitely understand. After hearing Di Beichen's words, everyone nodded one after another. Their thoughts were similar to Di Beichen's. That's right, what wonderful things happened in the exam in these 2 years. Come and tell me. Zhan Yunfeng's face was full of curiosity. In these 2 years, every time Lu Qingyue received news of the exam, she would tell her. The cruelty made her even more amazed. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had returned from the exam, she naturally wanted to hear what Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had to say. After all, their words were more authentic and credible. Yunfeng, it's really a pity that you didn't participate in the competition. What happened in there is really too wonderful. Xia Zhiqing immediately sat next to Zhan Yunfeng and told her about what they had encountered in the assessment. She felt that what she had experienced in the past 2 years of the assessment was simply a fortuitous encounter. She had long wanted to find someone to talk about it. Now that Yunfeng wanted to hear it, she was more than happy to tell her. Everyone saw that Xia Zhiqing was talking happily, and Zhan Yunfeng was listening happily. One was willing to hit and the other was willing to be hit. They were very happy. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang, Dong Fengyu and the others looked at each other and smiled. Xia Zhiqing never stopped talking, and Bai Junyu often added on the side. Zhan Yunfeng and Cui Haoyan, on the other hand, were fascinated by the story. They felt that the small world was a completely different and novel world. All the encounters were amazing. After hearing about these exciting encounters, Zhan Yunfeng and Cui Haoyan couldn't help but feel envious. Compared to that, the past 2 years they had spent cultivating in the Azure Water School were too boring. If they could have participated in the exam with everyone, it would have been great. Chapter 1642. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xia Zhiqing, Bai Junyu and Dong Fengyu, who were talking excitedly, as well as Zhan Yunfeng and Cui Haoyan, who were listening on the side. She couldn't help but laugh in her heart. Now the matter of participating in the assessment competition had become the capital for everyone to brag about, but seeing everyone so happy, her mood was also very good. Turning her head, Bailey Hongzhuang found that Di Beichen was also listening on the side. Her pretty face couldn't help but show a touch of surprise. Beichen, why are you listening so seriously? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. It was reasonable to say that with Di Beichen's character, he shouldn't be interested in these things. Di Beichen smiled and held Bailey Hongzhuang's small hand, saying, I also want to know what you have experienced during the time I was away. In the past 2 years he had been staying in Tiangang sect, and didn't know what Hongzhuang had experienced. Now listening to the narration of Xia Zhiqing and others, he understood more about the risks Hongzhuang had experienced in the past 2 years. A little carelessness could have cost her her life. He was very clear about the risks and hardships to win first place in the assessment competition. During that period of time, he could not be by Hongzhuang's side. After listening to Xia Zhiqing's words, he suddenly felt grateful to Mo Yunjue. Because, during the time he was away, Mo Yunjue had been taking care of Hongzhuang. Listening to Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart softened and she was quietly moved. In the past 2 years you have worked hard, but I haven't been able to be with you. Di Beichen blamed himself. He had secretly vowed to take care of Hongzhuang, and not let Hongzhuang be in danger. However, when Hongzhuang was in danger, he wasn't by her side. Speaking of which, as her husband, he really didn't fulfill the responsibilities that he should have. Bailey Hongzhuang looked into Di Beichen's deep eyes and saw the guilt and self-blame in his eyes. She couldn't help but hold Di Beichen's hand. Her eyes were filled with emotion. Beichen, I understand your feelings for me. There are many risks that I should take on myself. I know that you've done a lot for me during the 2 years that I've been participating in the assessment. If you still blame yourself, then wouldn't I blame myself to death? Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Di Beichen. In fact, she should be the one blaming herself and feeling guilty. From the beginning to the end, Di Beichen had been helping her take care of her, helping her vent her anger, helping her take revenge, helping her investigate her background, and helping her take care of her teammates. However, other than helping Di Beichen stand up again, she didn't do anything else. Back then, Di Beichen endured so much pressure from Tiangang sect just to be with her, but she was completely unaware. After that, Di Beichen dealt with everything in Tiangang sect and consolidated his position. Similarly, she didn't help at all. On the contrary, because of her appearance, everyone started to doubt Di Beichen. Because of her appearance, the elders of Tiangang sect also gave Di Beichen a lot of pressure. All of this she did not help in any way. It was only Di Beichen who bore the burden alone. Di Beichen never cared about these things. He just took care of her. She only felt that meeting Di Beichen was the greatest fortune in her life. How could she feel that Di Beichen wasn't good at all? Chapter 1643. You being able to come back and return to my side is the best thing that can happen to me. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang affectionately. Along the way they had a lot of helplessness and too many things to do. Fortunately, Hongzhuang was always able to understand him. Looking at Di Beichen like this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart became more and more moved. Under such circumstances, all words seemed to pale in comparison. They could both understand each other's heart that was desperately trying to be good to them. Xia Jiqing and the others were talking happily, and did not notice the situation of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. They also did not know how much shock Di Beichen had when they talked about all the dangers. Di Beichen just listened carefully to everyone. Dongfang Yu and the others were not people who exaggerated the facts. Therefore, Di Beichen understood more about everything that had happened in the past 2 years. After hearing that Bailey Hongzhuang was desperately trying to obtain the inheritance, and that even Mo Yunjue was seriously injured and unconscious, Di Beichen could not help but tighten his grip on Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. Mo Yunjue was very strong, but even Mo Yunjue was injured. Hongzhuang was still persevering. It could be seen how intense the pain Hongzhuang suffered at that time was. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard about this matter, she also felt sorry for Mo Yunjue. At that time she only wanted to climb to the 100th floor, and did not care about what happened behind. Speaking of which, she was extremely lucky. If it were not for the existence of the colorful energy in her body, she would only have a dead end if she went up. Mo Yunjue was much stronger than her, but he was seriously injured and unconscious under that huge pressure. It was reasonable to say that her situation should be worse than Mo Yunjue's. However, it was that rainbow energy that reduced the pressure on her, allowing her to climb up to the 100th level. Now that she recalled that scene, even she felt a wave of lingering fear. Fortunately, she was lucky at that time. Otherwise, she would have lost her life. Di Beichen was even more afraid. If anything had happened at that time, Hongzhuang would not have been able to come back. He did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be so desperate at a time like this. It seemed like the matter of her parents had put a lot of pressure on Hongzhuang. If not, Hongzhuang would not be so desperate. There were many powerful cultivators around him, but there were very few who could fight as hard as Hongzhuang. Di Beichen's heart sank. They had to rescue Hongzhuang's parents as soon as possible. They still had enough time to prepare to deal with the Yu clan and the Long clan, but saving Hongzhuang's parents was a matter of urgency. Bailey Hongzhuang felt that Di Beichen's hand that was holding hers tightened a little. She could not help but hold Di Beichen's hand back. Fortunately, she managed to pull through. Not only that, but she also got an excellent inheritance. It was just that she had not had time to tell Di Beichen about this. These days, everyone had been rushing together. She and Di Beichen had very little time to be alone together. However, Today they finally arrived at the Kanglan College. They could say what they wanted to say. Time always passed very quickly during these happy times. While Xia Jiqing and the others were talking, they didn't know that it was already evening. The three beasts took the lead and said, "It's getting late, it's time to eat." Listening to the reminder of the three beasts, the people who were talking happily recovered. Chapter 1644. We're not in a hurry to leave tomorrow. If everyone wants to chat, there's plenty of time. Why don't we go to the elegant cloud residence first? Di Beichen stood up and said. Hearing Di Beichen's words, the three beasties looked at Di Beichen with excitement. Di Beichen was so good. Dongfang Yu nodded slightly. Yes, let's go to the restaurant and drink. I haven't tasted wine in 2 years. Thinking back to when they were in the Azure Water School, they would go to the elegant cloud residence from time to time and enjoy themselves. When they were participating in the exam, they rarely had the chance to eat hot dishes, let alone drink wine. Moreover, in a place like the pocket dimension that was full of danger, the slightest carelessness could cause them to lose their lives. They didn't dare to relax at all. Now that they were back and could have a good rest, they felt very comfortable. Then let's go. Bai Junyu smiled. Speaking of eating, he was also a bit hungry. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others stood up and walked outside. After walking out of the room, they found that Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue hadn't come down yet. They immediately stopped at the door. Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue haven't come down yet. Should we go up and find them or go to the elegant cloud residence first? Dongfang Yu looked at everyone and asked. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other. They didn't know what to do in this situation. If they went up and disturbed Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue, it wouldn't be good. But if they went up by themselves and Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue didn't know where they were, what should they do? Just as everyone was hesitating, the sound of footsteps came from upstairs. Looking carefully, everyone found that the people who came were Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue. Gong Xiaoqing still had an expressionless face. Lu Qingyue's eyes were slightly red. It was obvious that she had just cried. Everyone looked at Gong Xiaoqing and Lu Qingyue, their minds constantly guessing the result of their conversation. However, looking at their expressions, he really couldn't guess what was going on. Feeling everyone's gaze, Gong Xiaoqing couldn't help but say, "Why are you looking at us? Aren't we going to the elegant cloud residence now?" Hearing this, Dongfang Yu withdrew his gaze and nodded. "Let's go. We'll go to elegant cloud residence now." Dongfang Yu winked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. It was obvious that he wouldn't be able to get any answers from them right now. It would be better to wait until after dinner. "Let's go then," Di Beichen said. Elegant cloud residence. In Kanglan City, no matter where Di Beichen's group went, they were the center of attention. Everyone's gaze fell on them as they discussed animatedly. Their gazes were filled with envy and yearning. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were already used to this. The reason why so many people were paying attention to them was because of their performance in the tournament, and also because they were cultivators who came back alive from the assessment tournament. These two incidents made them the center of attention of all the students in the school. After all, these competitions were also what they wanted to experience. When everyone arrived at the elegant cloud residence, the owner of the elegant cloud residence immediately greeted Dongfang Yu and Gong Xiaoqing. Dongfang Gongzi Yu came. The owner's face was filled with a happy smile. Dongfang Yu and the others used to come to the elegant cloud residence to drink. They hadn't come for more than 2 years. Now that they came again, he was very surprised. Chapter 1645. Young Master Dongfang, I guessed that you would come, so I have already prepared everything for you. The boss smiled. Dongfang Yu was a little surprised, then smiled and said, "Boss is smart, you have already expected it." Under the guidance of the waiter, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others entered a private room. Good wine and dishes came one after another. Everyone had not eaten such delicious food for a long time. Today they just wanted to reward themselves. Speaking of which, the combat effectiveness of their team was not weak. Apart from themselves, Xiao He, Xiao Bai, Bai Shi, Xiao Feng and Xiao Hu needed to eat a lot. Although Xiao Feng and Xiao Hu were still very young, their appetites were very amazing, and they ate a lot each time. When they were in the small world, they did not need to worry. They hunted a lot of monsters every day, so Xiao Feng and Xiao Hu could eat as much as they wanted. However, now that they were out of the small world, it was not so easy. Xia Jiqing and Bai Junyu's pockets were rapidly shrinking. At this time, they realized how difficult it was for Hong Zhuang to raise 3 beasts. They were afraid that only the financial resources of their boss could afford to raise 3 beasts. If it was them, it would be very difficult to raise 1 beast. Now they only felt that if they did not earn money, the wind spirit tiger would starve to death with them. Since we are back, let's go see the principal, vice principal and the mentors tomorrow morning, Gong Xiaoqing suggested. It was not early when they arrived in Songlan City today, so they did not visit the principal and the others. As a part of Songlan College, now that they were back, they naturally had to visit. Otherwise, it would be inexcusable. We also plan to do the same. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. This was the most important thing for them to come back. Haha. Then let's drink today. The private room was filled with hearty laughter. Everyone was extremely happy as they toasted each other. This was a rare relaxation after 2 years of hardship, and they just wanted to get drunk. The 5 beasts gathered together, and He Mu became the person who took care of them. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Bai Shi gobbled up the food without any qualms. Xiao Feng and Xiao Hu had never tasted such dishes before, so they were a little confused. However, after tasting the first mouthful, Xiao Feng and Little Tiger's eyes lit up, and they immediately followed Xiao He and the others to eat heartily. In comparison, eating demonic beast meat directly wouldn't taste as good as this. At this moment, Xiao Feng and Xiao Hu finally understood why the 3 beasties kept talking about coming to the restaurant to eat. This was simply a delicacy on Earth. Eating these, they felt that their lives were complete. He Mu saw that the original 3 gluttons were already gluttonous enough, and now there were 2 more little gluttons. It looked like young Madam and the others were going further and further on the path of raising gluttonous demonic beasts. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others set a record in Elegant Cloud residence. It was a record of eating the most. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others hadn't had enough hot food for a long time. Now that they were eating, they felt that the taste was simply too good to be true. Immediately, everyone started eating and drinking. Very soon they were all cleaned up. Chapter 1646. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came out of Elegant Cloud residence, it was already very late. Most of the people in Songlan City had already rested. Everyone hadn't relaxed for a long time. After today's indulgence, they all walked to the special enrollment dormitory drunk. Of all the people present, only He Mu was still sober. Because he had to take care of the 5 beasts, he didn't drink before. But later he was pulled by Dongfang Yu and the others to drink a lot. In the end he was also a little dizzy, but his situation was a bit better than the others. Everyone staggered all the way back to the special enrollment dormitory. He Mu helped everyone open the door. Bai Junyu entered the room and lay directly on the bed. He Mu then put Little Tiger in the room and then closed the door. Xia Jiqing and the others also returned to their own rooms. He Mu opened Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's room. Bailey Hongzhuang walked directly into the room dizzily and lay on the bed, feeling very comfortable. Di Beichen also walked into the room. He only felt that his whole person was floating on the clouds until he was lying on the clouds. He Mu also walked into the room. The 3 beasts were tightly lying on his body, unwilling to get down. He was also very helpless. He Mu fell directly on the bed, and the 3 beasts slept beside him, looking very happy. Not only did He Mu and the others drink, but the 3 beasts also drank. They had always been curious about what kind of wine everyone drank and how it tasted, so they also tasted it. However, after tasting it, they only felt that their whole head was dizzy and their bodies became soft. They were very happy. Bailey Hongzhuang only felt a little cold at night, and couldn't help but want to find a quilt to cover herself with. But after reaching out for a long time, she couldn't find the existence of a quilt at all. In the process of searching, Bailey Hongzhuang found a warm place beside her and immediately approached it. Suddenly finding a warm stove in this cold winter night, Bailey Hongzhuang felt extremely happy. She hugged the stove tightly and fell asleep. She also felt the stove hugging her tightly. The night gradually faded, and the sun slowly rose from the horizon. The first rays of dawn shone on the earth. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly woke up. Her slender eyebrows were slightly knitted. She had drunk too much wine last night. When she woke up in the morning, her head was still dizzy. Opening her eyes in a daze, Bailey Hongzhuang was about to get up when she suddenly found a handsome face in front of her, close at hand. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately woke up and couldn't help but be stunned. When she took a closer look, she realized that she was sleeping in Di Beichen's arms. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but recall how she felt cold when she was sleeping last night. She kept looking for a blanket and finally found a heater. She hugged it tightly and fell asleep. Could it be that heater was Di Beichen? Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang's face couldn't help but be stained with a crimson red. Her heart thumped wildly. Then what should I do now? Bailey Hongzhuang's mind quickly worked. Should I take advantage of this opportunity to escape? Not to mention that Di Beichen's hand was still wrapped around her waist. If I leave now, Di Beichen will definitely wake up. If Di Beichen sees me in the process of escaping, wouldn't it be even more difficult to explain? Pretending to be asleep? That's right. Chapter 1647. After deciding what to do, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately pretended to be asleep. However, after closing her eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Di Beichen didn't move. She couldn't help but open her eyes again. Looking at Di Beichen at such a close distance, she only felt that Di Beichen's handsome face was like a sculpture, angular and impeccable. Thick eyebrows, charming eyes, a handsome nose and seductive lips. His skin wasn't as rough as an ordinary man's, nor was it as delicate as a man's. Instead, it was somewhere in between, full of manliness. The sleeping Di Beichen was less domineering and evil, and more gentle and well-behaved. He was like the boy next door, giving people a different feeling. Bailey Hongzhuang's hand slowly stroked the contours of Di Beichen's face. Those slender, fan-like eyelashes were enough to make a woman feel ashamed. He was really very good-looking, Bailey Hongzhuang thought to herself. Even among the men she had seen in her 2 lives, there was still no one who could compare to Di Beichen. This was a face that no matter how you looked at it, you would never get tired of looking at it. It was perfect, flawless, and impeccable. Bailey Hongzhuang supported her head and stared at Di Beichen's face. The more she looked, the more unscrupulous she became. Di Beichen's sleeping appearance clearly meant that he wouldn't wake up in a short time. Therefore, she became bolder. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze moved from Di Beichen's eyebrows to Di Beichen's lips. His lips were also very good-looking. His beautiful rose-colored lips were always curved at a charming angle. When they opened and closed, they were filled with an indescribable charm. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was staring at Di Beichen, suddenly, a force came from the back of her head, and her body leaned forward uncontrollably. And her lips happened to be pressed against Di Beichen's lips. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was suddenly dyed with a touch of crimson. She could feel the warm touch on her lips, soft and slightly cool, with a faint mint smell. Di Beichen suddenly opened his eyes and licked his lips in satisfaction. His starry eyes were filled with a bright smile. My wife has looked at your husband for so long. Have you seen enough? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen's bright eyes. How could he be sleepy? Obviously, he couldn't be any more sober. This guy was just pretending to be asleep. You're pretending to be asleep. Bailey Hongzhuang blushed and looked at Di Beichen with dissatisfaction. This guy was too bad, he was simply a big bad wolf. Di Beichen curved his charming thin lips. If I didn't pretend to be asleep, how could my wife look at me so boldly? Looking at Di Beichen's devilishly charming and reasonable appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang's face was full of indignation. I didn't. You didn't? Di Beichen raised his handsome eyebrows and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a faint smile. His eyes were full of ridicule. I was very careful. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's small hand and said slyly, Just now this hand kept brushing past my face. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately withdrew her hand and tried to quibble. I didn't. You didn't? Di Beichen narrowed his eyes and slowly approached Bailey Hongzhuang. You took advantage of me and you still don't want to admit it? Bailey Hongzhuang felt a dangerous aura and couldn't help but retreat a few steps. She still denied it. When did I take advantage of you? You're obviously the one who took advantage of me. Hearing this, Di Beichen suddenly laughed and flipped over onto Bailey Hongzhuang's body. Chapter 1648. Suddenly being covered by Di Beichen, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a touch of panic, and her beautiful face was quickly dyed with a touch of crimson. Di Beichen, what is he doing? Without waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to react, Di Beichen's thin lips covered her red lips again. However, this kiss was not as shallow as before, but deeper. Tossing and turning, it was full of surging longing and possessiveness. Di Beichen originally only wanted to bully Bailey Hongzhuang, but he did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang's lips to be so magical. That touch of fragrance intoxicated and infatuated him, and he only wanted to go deeper and taste her sweetness. He missed her so much. For the past 2 years, he had missed her almost every day. He missed her smile, he missed her voice, he missed everything about her. Bailey Hongzhuang passively endured it at first. Although Di Beichen's kiss was urgent and domineering, Bailey Hongzhuang could still feel his gentleness. Gradually, Bailey Hongzhuang also responded to Di Beichen. She also missed him, missed everything about him, and hoped to see him soon, and hoped that she could always be by his side in the future. The atmosphere in the room gradually heated up. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was covered with red, and her breathing became a little faster. Di Beichen only felt that his body was about to burn up, and an uncontrollable desire exploded from his body. In such a blurred and ambiguous atmosphere, Di Beichen's big hand slowly covered Bailey Hongzhuang's softness. Feeling Di Beichen's action, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but be stunned for a moment. Her body stiffened for a moment, and her mind recovered a trace of rationality. She could not help but grab Di Beichen's hand, and did not let him continue. Di Beichen stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, his starry eyes filled with deep affection, longing and a trace of nervousness. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen, and her heart suddenly softened. Yes, she was already Di Beichen's wife. After 2 years of testing, Di Beichen had already proven his sincerity. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang's hand gradually lowered. Noticing the change in Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen was shocked for a moment, and his heart could not help but surge. He hugged Bailey Hongzhuang tightly. He knew what Bailey Hongzhuang meant. Hongzhuang, I love you. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang affectionately. He clearly understood Bailey Hongzhuang's feelings for him. I love you too. Bailey Hongzhuang's face burst into a smile. Her expression was a bit shy, and her beautiful eyes were also filled with deep affection. However, at this moment, a knock on the door suddenly sounded. Hongzhuang, are you up? Hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned, and then said, I'm up. However, her voice could not help but be a bit hoarse. We will set off to see the principal in a while. You can come out after you freshen up, Xia Jiqing said with a smile. Last night they were all drunk. Fortunately, they were all cultivators and their physical fitness was very good. Being drunk would not have any impact on them. Yesterday, they came back too late and did not go to see the principal and mentors. If they did not go today, it would be unreasonable. Okay, I will come out in a while, Bailey Hongzhuang responded. Chapter 1649. There was a burst of footsteps at the door. Obviously, everyone was waiting for them to leave. There was no other way. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes showed a teasing and sly smile. She looked at Di Beichen playfully and said, We should get up. Even if Di Beichen was interrupted at this time, his eyes could not help but show annoyance. Damn it! Di Beichen's heart was helpless. This was really fate. Looking at Di Beichen's appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but giggle. She really saw Di Beichen like this for the first time. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's proud posture, Di Beichen's eyes narrowed and attacked again. After kissing Bailey Hongzhuang's lips, Di Beichen said, "What a bunch of untimely guys." After tidying up, Bailey Hongzhuang walked out of the house and Di Beichen directly jumped out of the window. Although Di Beichen did not mind, he knew that if he went out with Hongzhuang would be embarrassed, so it was better for him to go out from the window. By the time Bailey Hongzhuang walked out of the room, almost everyone had already gathered. "Hongzhuang, you are here." Xia Jiqing smiled. "I slept in a daze last night and didn't know what happened." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Yes, everyone hasn't been so relaxed for a long time. She really didn't know what happened last night. Just as she didn't know why she saw Di Beichen when she opened her eyes in the morning. "Di Beichen and Heimu haven't come out yet." Bai Junyu said. "Heimu seems to be drunk. He drank a little wine and got drunk." Although he was confused last night, he remembered that Heimu drank the least, much less than them. However, Darkwood's reaction was not much better than theirs. Bailey Hongzhuang's clear and bright phoenix eyes were deep in thought as she spoke. Maybe Heimu didn't drink much before. As Di Beichen's secret guard, Darkwood had always been hiding in the dark, maintaining a clear mind at all times. He probably wouldn't drink at all. Yesterday, after Dongfang Yu and the others drank, they went crazy. They pulled Heimu and began to drink. Not only Heimu, even the five beasts drank a lot. People who drank alcohol for the first time tended to react more violently, so it was normal that Blackwood hadn't gotten up yet. Haha. Then Heimu must be feeling better now. Dongfang Yu chuckled. Although they didn't have much interaction with Heimu was an adorable fellow who easily left a good impression on others and was easy to bully. At this time, Di Beichen walked in from outside the dormitory. Everyone is already up. When they saw Di Beichen return from outside, everyone's faces were filled with surprise. "Di Beichen, when did you get up?" Xia Jiqing asked in surprise. "I'm used to waking up early to cultivate. Seeing that you didn't get up, I went outside for a walk." Di Beichen's face was really red when he lied. His calm appearance, if Bailey Hongzhuang did not know what had happened before, she was afraid that she would have believed it to be true. "You're really amazing." Xia Jiqing looked at Di Beichen with admiration. The young lord of Tiangang's sect was really extraordinary. He must have cultivated harder than them. Not only Xia Jiqing, but Dongfang Yu and the others also admired Di Beichen. Chapter 1650. After experiencing so many things, their thoughts were much more mature than before. Wanting to be in a high position was never as simple as looking at reputation. For a genius like Di Beichen, if he didn't work hard enough, his strength and status would be coveted by many. If not for this, Di Beichen wouldn't have become the prince of Fengbo country. Although they didn't know much about these things, they vaguely understood some things. In their eyes, Di Beichen was an insurmountable mountain, their role model. Seeing Di Beichen happily accept everyone's praise, even Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but blush for Di Beichen. This guy's face was completely trained. If it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't be able to hide it. Heimu hasn't woken up yet. Baisher and the others should be with Heimu. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was light and sweet. Her gaze turned to Di Beichen, asking for Di Beichen's opinion. Ever since Heimu came, the three beasts had stuck to him. Thinking about it, Heimu would be taking care of them for the next few days. After all, Heimu was the easiest to bully. Since Heimu hasn't woken up yet, let him continue to sleep. He usually doesn't drink alcohol, but he suddenly drank too much yesterday. I'm afraid the aftereffects won't be small. Di Beichen smiled. Heimu had been by his side since a long time ago. They practically grew up together. Although he usually cultivated hard, he still had time to relax. However, Heimu didn't. Heimu always strictly protected him in the dark. Sometimes he would pull Heimu to relax, but Heimu stubbornly persisted. He didn't think that yesterday, when Heimu was taking care of the three beasts, Dongfang Yu would directly pull Heimu over and force him to drink without saying anything. However, this was also good. Heimu could also relax, but the aftereffects weren't very good. After confirming from Di Beichen that Heimu had never drunk alcohol, Dong Fengyu's expression couldn't help but change. He never thought that Heimu had never drunk before, so when Heimu said that he didn't drink before, he didn't believe him at all. He directly forced Heimu to drink a lot. She didn't expect Heimu to be telling the truth. She felt a little embarrassed. Heimu has never drunk alcohol before. He is really strict. Bai Junyu couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. They all knew Heimu's identity, so they could naturally guess the reason why Heimu didn't drink. From this, one could see how serious and responsible Heimu was. Let's go see the principal first. I believe the principal already knows about our return. Gong Xiaoqing's cold face was filled with wisdom. Based on his understanding of the principal was probably already waiting for them to pay their respects. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other and nodded. Okay, let's go. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others immediately walked out of the special enrollment dormitory and slowly walked in the direction of the principal's office. Along the way, they passed by the martial arts arena where the cultivators were practicing. Suddenly, all eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. After yesterday's understanding, the students of the Azure Water School almost all knew about the deeds of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Therefore, everyone's eyes were now looking at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, full of yearning. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.